suing her former tenant, 27-year-old Megan Gray, for unpaid rent and damage to her home. Donna says she evicted Megan because she's an abusive mother.
All rise.
Yes, case number 9 on the calendar in the matter of Whale versus Gray.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated, sir. Have a seat, please.
Miss Whale, you met the defendant at a gym. Was she your trainer?
Yes.
And then she became your tenant. She and her children moved into a basement apartment that you have.
Yes.
According to your complaint, when she left, she owed you rent, and she also owed you for some babysitting services.
Yes.
Ms. Gray says she paid rent while she was there. She owes you nothing, and she is counterclaiming because she says you failed to give her any notice of your intention to terminate the tenancy, unceremoniously packed her things and put them outside, and some of her things were ruined. And she also wants moving expenses because you put her out in the street with her children in the middle of the month. So she's counterclaiming.
Yes.
When did she move into your apartment?
August 15th.
And according to what I read, when she moved in, you did not pay any rent for August.
No, ma'am, I did not.
And, Miss Whale, according to what I gather from your complaint, you sort of agreed to waive August's rent.
No, that's not correct.
Yes,
Yes, I believe you did.
I have a...
Shh. Between August 15th or 19th, when she moved in, and December, when you put her out, when did you demand that she pay the 2 weeks in August?
We spoke about it on a regular basis.
Really?
That is
Yes.
not correct.
Shh, just a minute. I don't think I believe that.
I have a witness who...
Who's that?
Stephen Rose. He'll testify otherwise.
Fine. But I don't think that you expected rent from her for August. Did she pay rent in September?
Yes.
Did she pay rent in October?
Yes.
Did she pay rent in November?
Yes.
How much did she pay a month?
$600.
Correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Did she pay December's rent?
She did with the check that she bounced.
Shh. Don't say anything. When did she pay December's rent?
On the 13th, she was late all the time.
But she paid your rent on December 13th. When did you put her out?
The 15th,
Well, if you put her out, why did you cash her check for December?
because she owed me for the first 2 weeks that she was there.
No, she didn't.
She was...
No, she didn't. I mean, I read your complaint. You say that you didn't like the way she treated her child, you didn't like her comings and goings, and you decided to get her out. When did you tell her you were putting her out?
We tried to get a hold of her all that day, and she was speaking about moving out
is not
for
true,
weeks.
Your Honor.
Shh. Listen, if you interrupt again, we're going to find in her favor, which is not going to be easy for me, but I don't like shouting out.
Excuse me.
You had been trying to get in touch with her all day. All day is not what a landlord does. A landlord gives a tenant notice.
Your Honor, she had been telling me that she was moving out for weeks.
Whether she tells you she's moving out or not, she paid you rent for the month of December, anticipating that she would have a place to live in the month of December. 2 days later, you kicked her out and went to cash her check. And she canceled the check because you kicked her out, and now you're suing her for the month of December's rent. I mean, that's outrageous. Outrageous. So she doesn't owe you any rent. I'm finding that right now. And because of what you did by throwing her out in the middle of the month without any notice, she doesn't owe you anything for the 2 weeks that she lived there in December. Nothing. Let's go to child care. Explain the child care scenario to me.
I went through the motions of becoming certified so that she could get assistance from the state for child care, and the state paid a portion. Her ex-husband paid his portion.
State paid how much?
It was different according to the months because she worked different hours.
When did you start babysitting for her?
The second she moved in.
In August?
Yes.
When did you become certified?
The process was a few months.
Did they pay you retroactively?
No, they paid me along the way because they said since I was in the process of becoming certified, then that was fine with them.
How many children do you have?
I have 3 children.
And you were watching all 3 children?
From time to time, yes. One of them was in kindergarten for part of the time.
Well, what was your financial arrangement?
That the rest of it would be paid by her and her ex. They were going to split that. Her ex always paid me, she didn't.
Is that correct?
Your Honor, I have this as evidence in a long letter that she wrote to me. Number 5, I have highlighted. You save hundreds of dollars a month because I am willing to trade your portion of child care fees for training at the gym.
Can I see it, please?
I
Can I see that?
agreed to...
Just a minute.
She did not honor that part.
That's not true.
Shh. Well, that's what you say. You say you are trading, as of November,
Right.
2006. You save hundreds of dollars because I'm willing to trade your portion of childcare fees for training at the gym.
Which didn't happen.
Well, it may not have happened, but you didn't say that here. As of November 7th, you had agreed that she was doing this trade with you. You didn't say you could have saved hundreds of dollars because I was willing to trade, but you didn't give me the training. You say you save hundreds of dollars monthly because I'm willing to trade your portion of childcare fees for training at the gym. That's as of November. And you put her out in December. That's what it says. What else does she owe you for?
Damage to the property.
What kind of damage to the property?
Carpet that has to be replaced, which I'm not charging her for. I'm just charging her for the cleaning of the carpet, as well as wall damage.
You have pictures of the damage?
I don't. I have estimates for it.
You must be very angry with her for some reason.
I am not.
Because I
just
don't
want
see,
what's
because
rightly
quite
mine.
frankly, I don't see a case here. She came to live with you in August. She paid September, October, November, and December's rent. You put her out in December, in the middle of the month. She stopped payment on the check, which was the absolute right thing to do. You had an agreement with her that in addition to the substantial living that you were making as a result of watching the children and the state paying for it, and you were getting additional money from the ex-husband to cover unreimbursed portions, you were bartering the service with her, which you acknowledged that you were bartering for training at the gym.
Which she didn't honor.
Well, you don't say that here in a letter that you sent to her in November. And if all you have to do after she moved out is clean the carpet, sounds to me as if it's just fine. Is it a legal apartment that you have there?
No.
It's not a legal apartment?
No.
Then you're not entitled to any rent. If it's not a legal apartment, but she's entitled to it, she's entitled to all of her rent back. That's what happens when you rent an illegal apartment to somebody with 3 children. You are counterclaiming because you say that she put you out in the middle of the month. She absolutely did. Where did you go?
Yes, ma'am. It was blizzard, snowing outside. I went to my friend's house that lives across the street, and I slept on her couch. I was not able to get my children back from the end of the weekend from my ex-husband for several days because I had nowhere to put my children.
Are the children with you now?
Yes, ma'am.
Because according to the plaintiff, she called Child Protective Services and reported what she considered abuse or neglect on your part. So I assume there was an investigation. Was there?
No, ma'am, there was not an investigation, but there was abuse on her part to my children, I feel, Your Honor.
Well, you don't talk about that here. I don't understand why this lady came to court, quite frankly. She's exposed herself terribly. Don't you know that you're not allowed to charge rent for an illegal apartment?
She was going to be out on the street. I was helping her out.
Well, you can help her out. You can help her out and let her stay in your basement.
I couldn't let her stay
No,
in my
listen to me.
basement.
You can help her out and let her stay in your basement, but you can't charge rent. You cannot rent an illegal apartment unless you have a certificate of occupancy for the apartment. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Perfect. You're not allowed to put somebody out. She's suing you for $1,300. Your claim is dismissed. Her counterclaim is granted. $1,300 for the defendant. That's all.
Thank
Step
you, Your
out.
Honor.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Well, I needed to ask her to leave because she was locking her son under the stairs.
I didn't lock him there and, leave him there.
In a teeny little cubby in a storage space with no heat and no light.
That's not true. I did not lock him in this tiny little place under the stairs.
I couldn't have that abuse going on in my home anymore.
There was a big, big space under the stairs, but it's a huge house. It was a huge place.
It was about neglect. She just wanted to party, and she wanted to have somebody watch her kids 24/7.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Lusk versus Rothrock, step forward.
19-year-old Rebecca Lusk is suing party guest 19-year-old Jeffrey Rothrock for denting her vehicle during a wrestling match with another guest.
Miss Lusk, it is your claim that the defendant is responsible for denting your car during a fight.
Yes.
Defendant's position is that it was the other guy who was really responsible, some guy named Charlie.
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you witness this altercation?
I saw that when he was actually thrown into the car.
I'd like you to tell me what happened. First, when it happened, or where you were when it happened.
I was in the house up in my room with my best
Where?
friend.
In your house, where? What jurisdiction?
It was nighttime, and
Jurisdiction, that means where? That means the place.
the upstairs part of in the house.
Were you in Colorado,
Oh,
Massachusetts?
Fountain Valley.
And where is Fountain Valley?
In Orange County, right
In
next
California.
to Huntington Beach, yes.
And at what time did this happen?
I think it was about 10:30 at night.
And did you know Mr. Rothrock before?
No, I had not known him prior to that night.
What were you doing there that evening, sir?
I was with a couple of my friends, and
we were going there for a party.
Were you having a party that night?
No, he went to dinner with one of my roommates. She was going with some friends from high school to dinner that night. And then they came over after dinner.
So there was a little gathering at your house?
Yeah, it was only about 8 people, though.
I said a little gathering at your house. And you were upstairs in your room?
Yes, I had gotten off work that night.
Go ahead, let me hear.
So I had gotten off work, and I was in my room watching TV with my roommate. We lived in the master bedroom, not her. And she was leaving. She went outside, my witness. She said they were fighting.
Who was fighting?
He and Charlie.
And whose friend is he?
He's Tina, who he was with that night, my roommate. They were with her.
And Charlie was her friend?
Yes.
Go ahead.
She came upstairs to get me and said that they were fighting near my car.
What were you fighting with Charlie about?
Well, it started with a wrestling match, and then...
You were out to dinner that evening with him?
Actually, I didn't go to dinner with Charlie. Prior to that, I probably only knew Charlie. I met him one time before that.
So it started with a wrestling match?
Yeah.
Which you did not see?
No.
Well, why don't you tell me about the wrestling match, Mr. Rothrock?
Okay, so
Tongue twister.
we're in the backyard.
Wrestling match, Mr. Rothrock. Go ahead.
Okay, we were in the backyard, and just basically he was saying a lot of like untrue statements that night, and I kind of laughed at one, and because he said that he could beat anyone in a wrestling match there. And he was a former wrestler, and so he challenged me to a wrestling match, and I wrestled him, and then it got broken up.
Okay, so he challenged you, and you said okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Had you been drinking that night?
Yes, Your Honor.
And what about Charlie?
Yes, he was too.
And how old are you, sir?
I'm 19.
Are you allowed to drink in California at age 19?
No, Your Honor.
Where'd you get the liquor from? Is not an answer.
Sorry, Your Honor. Someone that night bought it.
Who bought it?
I really don't know.
Where did you consume it? Is not an answer. Don't
Sorry.
think. Tell the truth.
Probably
then you
about-
don't have to have a good memory.
Probably about an hour after I got there.
Where did you consume it?
In the backyard and in the kitchen.
So when you were drinking in the backyard, that's when you and Charlie decided to have this wrestling match.
Yes, Your Honor.
Keep going.
Okay, so that got broken up, and then...
Makes it so easy.
We went again, and that got broken up too.
Okay, so you wrestled twice.
And then...
Who won the first match?
He won the first match, and I won the second match.
So he pinned you first.
Yes.
Then you pinned him second. Aren't you impressed that an old broad like me understands that term? Let me hear.
Okay, he wanted to wrestle again, and I was pretty much physically exhausted, and so I didn't agree to it, and I honestly don't know how, but probably 30 seconds after we started fighting, and then that got broken up, and immediately after that, I'm not sure who it was, but some owners of the house pretty much stated that they didn't want me to be there anymore, so I left, and I went to the front of the house to wait for my friends, and we were going to go home, and people came outside, and Charlie was one of them, and he had his shirt off, and he was getting in my face, kind of, you know, clenching his fists and stuff, and, like, he kind of tackled me.
How do you kind of tackle somebody?
He speared me.
What has speared you?
He wrapped my legs up and put his upper body into my, like, stomach, and that's how I fell into the car.
Is that what you saw?
No, ma'am.
You want to come up here and tell me what you saw? First, tell me your name.
I'm Lindsay Gardner. I'm Becca's best friend.
All right, Miss Gardner, tell me what you saw.
I was actually leaving the house when they...
What had you been doing that evening?
I was hanging out with Becca. She had just gone off work, and I was in the area, so I just came over to say hi.
Okay.
So
what had you been doing that evening?
I was working as well.
So you weren't drinking?
No.
Only they were drinking?
We were both sober.
Yeah.
We weren't drinking.
Go ahead.
I was leaving. The defendant was outside. He was Charlie and he were verbally abusing each other, talking very loudly outside. That's when I went back upstairs and grabbed Becca and said, there's going to be a fight out in front of your house. And it's out in front of the house. It was in the backyard. This is where the fight had occurred. I went out, and then the fight had turned physical, and I was screaming at the top of my lungs, stop, stop, take this somewhere else. You're getting too close to her vehicle. Stop. It was the only one there. And from then I saw the defendant. It looked like he pushed Charlie into the car, because if you saw what the car looked like, it's not like it's just a little push. It was like you needed force to make the damage on the car.
Got it. And who are you?
My name's Drew Adzovich.
You're Drew what?
Adzovich, and I was there the night that it happened. I was with him, actually, and...
Were you drinking, too?
I only had, we got there late, so I only had maybe, a beer or two.
Beer or two. Where did you have the beer or two?
In the backyard.
How old are you?
21 now.
But you were 20 then?
I was 20 at the time, though, yeah.
Yeah. Who brought the alcohol?
I don't remember. I think it was there. I think it was at the house. Because I knew the girl at the house. I went to high school with her, and that's how we went down there. And then...
Did you go out for dinner with Charlie?
No. I don't really like that guy, to tell you the truth.
I'm beginning not to like him either. Go ahead, let me hear.
Yeah, so then, like you said, what happened in the backyard, they kind of...
Get the backyard, go to the front.
Well, when I was outside, Charlie came up to him and he was trying to apologize to him. And he wasn't having it. He was like, no, just leave me alone. And he kept trying to and kept going.
Who kept trying?
Charlie. He kept pushing the issue. And Jeff...
Apologizing.
Apologizing. And then finally he got mad. And like he said, he clenched his fist, and then he just tackled him, and he fell back. And that's why the dent was so big. It's because he fell backwards into the car.
And
to be exact.
You didn't see anybody on the ground?
No, it was chaotic. You know how fights happen.
You didn't hear this young lady said, take it someplace else?
No,
Look at me.
She wasn't even out there.
This young lady wasn't out there?
Oh, I didn't see her. I'm talking about the owner.
I'm not talking about the owner. I'm talking about this little lady right here.
I didn't see her.
It
was too chaotic. When fights happen, you don't see everything that happens.
Excuse me? What did you say?
When fights happen, it's so chaotic, you don't remember, you don't see what happens.
Right. Sit down. Thank you. Mr. Rothrock.
Yes, Your Honor.
You are responsible, sir, for what happened to her car. If you believe that Charlie, too, was responsible for what happened to the car, sue him. She doesn't have to go find Charlie. She's got you. Do you understand? That's what they call, in legalese, impleading. You could implead Charlie in this action, and you could have said, listen, I'm partially responsible because I was drunk and stupid and I shouldn't have been drinking. He's partially responsible, so maybe we should each pay half. But the plaintiff doesn't have to go against both of you. She can only go against one of you if she wishes. And she chose you. I don't care why. You got to pay. And if you think Charlie should be partially responsible, sue him. I'm here every day. How much did it cost you to fix your car?
$1,197.54.
You have the bill?
Yes.
What kind of car is it?
2004 BMW.
Nice car.
Yes.
Who works?
I do.
You pay for it yourself?
Yes.
Good girl. Proud of you.
Thank you.
Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $1,197.54. Yeah.
Parties are excused. You may step.
Is suing his former friend, 21-year-old Megan Foote, for crashing his car while making a beer run. Megan claims the accident was a result of faulty steering.
Order. All rise. Yeah, this is case number 168 on the calendar in the matter of Sarden versus Foote.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat.
Mr. Sarden, you allowed the defendant to borrow your car. She took your car. She totaled your car. You want it fixed or replaced.
Yes.
Ms. Foote says that you loaned her your car. She did total your car. It was your car's fault, and she's counterclaiming for the pain and suffering she endured when your car was in an accident. What kind of car was this?
The Lexus ES300.
What year?
1993.
How long have you had it?
About 7 to 8 years.
Have you had any trouble with the car?
No.
Has the car ever been in an accident?
No.
You have it serviced regularly?
Yes.
And it has never been in a reported accident other than this one?
No.
Tell me about the circumstances surrounding your loaning Miss Foote the car.
She was supposed to go to the store.
Where were you first?
We was at a mutual friend's house. We was there for a birthday party for a little kid. I had showed up later on, and then...
What date was it?
March 17, 2007.
And I assume you knew her before?
Yes.
How long have you known each other?
For about 1.5 years, closer to.
Just friends?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so go.
So I had let her borrow my car. She was supposed to go to the store. Now, in order...
Did she ask you to borrow the car?
Actually, we had needed to go on a store run, and I did not feel like going out. I had just came back from driving all day, so I did not feel like going out, so I had let Megan borrow the car.
Well, tell me how it came about.
We was talking, we was in a room, and then everybody was like, we need to go to the store. So I'm like,
What did you have to get?
We had to get cigarettes and beer.
Okay, go ahead.
And then I had let her borrow the car.
I still haven't heard how that came about. Somebody said we need cigarettes and beer.
Okay,
and?
we was talking, everybody was talking. I'm sitting there saying, I'm not going to the store. So then she has said, I'll go to the store, you know I'm good. And I said, Meg, I said, are you sure you straight? She was like, Cal, I'm good. So I let her borrow the car.
Oh, okay. So everybody had been drinking?
No, not everybody, no.
But you asked her whether she was okay?
Yes.
Anybody been doing drugs that evening?
No.
Smoking a little?
No.
Just beer?
Yes, beer and cigarettes.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right, so then she had asked me to borrow the car to go to the store.
To go. She said, I'll go.
Yes.
And I'm good.
Yes.
Which means that she was
Yes.
together enough to go.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So then she went to the store, and now, From the house that we was at to go to the store, it takes about 10 to 15 minutes to go to the store and back. So I had noticed my car hadn't been back in about a half an hour, so then I started to worry. And then so I had started to eat me some soup, and then after I finished the soup, I had noticed that my car still wasn't back. And then so one of my friends, female friends, had came over, and she was like, "Are you still waiting for your car?" And I said, "Yes." And she was like, "Well, I think your car might have been involved in an accident up the block." And I was like, "Oh, no." So then I hopped in my friend.
Okay, and you found the car. Whatever. All right, you didn't witness the car accident, but you were there.
Yes, ma'am.
Were you on your way to the store or from the store?
I was on my way from the store.
On your way back to the party?
Yes.
And what did you have in the car?
I had actually gone to pick up my roommate, and he was supposed to pick her up from work that evening. He had gotten intoxicated and forgot.
Who?
Calvin.
Was supposed to pick up your friend?
Yes.
Your Honor.
Fine. What about this beer and cigarette run?
We had gone to pick up cigarettes at the store.
Who did?
Me and my roommate.
So first you picked up your roommate.
Correct.
And then you went to pick up beer and cigarettes.
Cigarettes. There was
Just
no
cigarettes?
beer to be picked up. No.
How old are you?
I'm 21.
And then you were on your way home.
We were on our way back to the party.
How far from the party were you? About a block?
Probably a minute to 2 minutes away. A few blocks.
So tell me what happened.
I was driving. The steering had malfunctioned. Let me get over here. The steering had malfunctioned probably about around here, where the car had gone into the mailbox. One of my passengers that was sitting in the front passenger seat had stated that I was going to hit a mailbox.
Don't tell me what anybody stated to you.
So the car swerved this way. It had swerved back to the other side of the road. Then it went over to the other side again and had gone up on the grass, hit the telephone pole, and that's about all I remember because I was knocked unconscious.
You have a driver's license?
Yes, I do.
You have a car?
Not at the time, no, I did not have a vehicle.
Did you ever have a vehicle?
Yes.
What happened to the car?
I had sold it because of personal issues.
Sold it why?
I had been going, I'm a single mother, and I was more concerned about caring for my child at the time. The car was not in my expenses. It wasn't in my means at the time, so I sold the vehicle so I was able to accommodate my son as properly needed.
You work?
Yes, I do.
How do you get to work?
I have a vehicle now. I went and purchased a vehicle about a couple months ago.
This happened in March.
Correct.
A couple of months ago is April, May.
Right. I purchased the vehicle in May.
When had you sold your other vehicle?
That was, what, November of 2006?
From November until 2006 until May, what did you do?
I had family members helping me out. My brother
mean?
lent me his car every now and then.
Well, how did you get to work every day?
I would have my family members drop me off to work.
Who do you live with?
I live with my roommate.
She talks very, very fast on her feet.
Yana,
But I don't believe everything that you're saying to me. You understand that?
Yes, I do.
You understand that? You know, because if something doesn't make sense, there's always that slight hesitation.
Right.
So you can always tell when somebody is giving you a line.
Right.
Making things up as they're going. You understand what I'm saying to you?
Yes, I do.
Perfect. Okay, where's the car now?
The car is totaled.
Totaled?
Yes, and I have pictures also right here showing
like
that it's
to see
totaled.
it.
And also I have an invoice from the place where it was totaled at, stating that it was a total loss.
Well, it certainly is a total loss. Did you replace it?
No.
You know what the blue book is on it?
Yes. I have it right here.
I'd like to see it.
There we go, right there. And also, Your Honor, just to make you aware, in that area, it's a 30-mile-per-hour zone, and I have pictures of that showing that it's a 30-mile-per-hour zone.
I'd like to see that.
Yes.
Because this wasn't a 30-mile-per-hour accident.
No way.
Now, how fast were you going?
To be honest with you, I don't really recall, but I was never given a speeding ticket.
Were you taken to the hospital?
I refused the ambulance ride because I didn't know what kind of situation he had as far as insurance. I didn't want to put him into financial debt.
What, are you kidding me? You didn't go to the hospital because you probably had a high blood alcohol level.
I was never given a sobriety test.
I didn't ask you that.
Also, Your Honor, I have in my police report where it says that she has slid 144 feet.
I see.
Also, if you was doing about 50 miles per hour, you would have been able to stop at around 175
Well, you don't have
feet.
any expert testimony. She doesn't have any expert witness, do you? Are you a mechanic?
No, ma'am.
You're the friend. You're not a mechanic, are you? You have any proof that there was something wrong with his car?
No, I do not. Your Honor?
What?
I do have an eyewitness that was in the vehicle with me that saw the steering malfunction and lock up on me.
Before or after you slammed on the brakes?
Before.
Oh, really? Love to hear that witness. Love to hear that witness.
Do I stand up?
Are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to do this? The question is...
I was there.
Are you sure you want to do this, is my question. Fine.
Yes.
Over here. Your last name?
Rosado.
Miss Rosado, what arrangements had you made to go to the party?
Went to work, and I was like, you know what, there's a birthday party, I can go to the party after work.
I said, what arrangements had you made to go to the party?
She was going to come pick me up.
Now, what would possibly give her the impression that he was supposed to pick you up?
He had told me that day. He had dropped me off that morning to work.
Was there anything wrong with the car?
Not that morning.
How many times has he taken you to work?
A couple of times.
How many is a couple? A couple is two.
Maybe 4 or 5 times.
How many other times have you been in his car?
A lot of times.
Ever had any steering problems?
One time we were in the vehicle and he was like, did you guys feel that? It was his car basically what he was trying to say was his car was messed up when we was in the car.
Don't tell me basically what he was trying to say, madam. Tell me about what happened.
We was in the car one day and we was driving on the highway. I believe they was on the highway. And we was on the highway and he was like, wow, did you guys feel that? He's like, I have to get my car fixed.
When was that?
The day before we had the accident.
But it had nothing to do with the steering.
Maybe not. I'm not sure. I don't know nothing about cars, Yana.
Listen to me. The day before the accident, so he said to you, wow, something's wrong with the car. But yet you got in the car that morning for him to take you to work.
That's true.
Why would you put your life in your hands like that?
Don't know.
Only a stupid person would do that. You're not a stupid person, are you?
No.
Now, you want to tell me what you observed on the 17th of March?
We was in the vehicle. We was driving on Pritchard, which is the road.
How fast were you going?
I don't know, Your Honor.
Well, let me ask you this. Were you going 30 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour?
I wasn't the passenger. I was in the back seat. I wasn't looking at the speedometer.
You don't have to look at the speedometer to know whether you were going 30 miles an hour or 60 miles an hour.
I wasn't paying attention, Your Honor.
Perfect. Then you can sit down. If you weren't paying attention, I'm not interested in what you have to say. Anything else you wanted to say to me?
Yes. He signed up for an insurance policy where he knew he was only covered for him to drive his vehicle if anything were to happen in a situation like this. My question is, why would you let someone use your car when you know you're not insured if anything were to happen in your vehicle?
The question is whether you were driving negligently.
No, Your Honor, I wasn't.
That was sort of a rhetorical question. There's no question in my mind that you were speeding. Based upon the damage to this vehicle, there's no question in my mind that you were going over and above the speed limit. There's also no question in my mind that you had had something to drink that night. It's irrelevant, therefore, whether or not he had insurance that covered you. And if you got hurt, you shouldn't have driven too fast, and you shouldn't have had anything to drink while you were driving. That's the price that you pay when you act stupid. Meanwhile, you have to replace his car. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000, that's all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I think it was an unfair ruling, but there's nothing I could do at this point.
Happy with it. I'm very happy.
I was knocked unconscious at the scene. I had serious bruising.
It looked awful. That's all I can say. It was very bad.
I had not been drinking.
It was definitely reckless driving and also speeding.
Screaming, telling me that I was dead to him and all this other nonsense.
I was very upset.
If it was such a good friendship to begin with, it should have never been brought to a level like this. It should have been handled outside of a courtroom.
Hopefully we can move past this, you know. If she doesn't want to, hey, what can I say?
If you allow somebody to live with you for 13 months and do not collect utilities from them on a regular basis, I'm not going to waste my precious time, 2 graduate degrees, and go over month-to-month Con Edison bills.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of O'Henley versus Debnam. Step forward.
Brenda O'Henley and her brother Daniel are suing their former tenant, Jared Debnam, for unpaid rent and utilities. Jared says his living arrangements were substandard, so he's not paying.
You are brother and sister, is that correct?
Yes.
You bought a condo together?
Yes, 2 years ago.
You live together?
Yes.
Great. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Get along?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Work
For
together
the most
too.
part.
Fabulous. How much was this condo?
It was $770,000. It's now worth $950,000.
Perfect. So you bought this condo and you did a very foolish thing. You decided to take in a third roommate.
Yes.
That would be you. And according to your complaint, he owes you a whole bunch of money for rent and primarily for rent, utilities. Mr. Debnam says, well, there was never really a formal agreement about him paying so much per month, and he's got a whole host of other problems that he encountered while living with you. You moved a girlfriend in shortly after he moved in, so he didn't feel as if that was right. There was a leak, and some of his clothes got moldy, right?
Correct.
Have you always lived in the United States of America?
Yes, I have.
So you know that this is what we call a free country.
Correct.
If you don't like something or if you don't like a place where you're living, what can you do?
Choose to move on?
Right. You don't choose to stay, kvetch, and don't pay. You move on to where there isn't a girlfriend, where there isn't a leak, where there isn't mold, but you don't stay and don't pay. Now, you lived there for a year, and you did pay some money in a bulk. You know, you didn't pay it by month because you were sort of not working, whatever. You got a check, and you gave them $4,000.
Well, that was just a part of the check from one of my financial aid checks.
Did you have your own bedroom?
Yes.
Did you have your own bathroom?
No.
Who did you share the bathroom with?
Everybody that used the house. As far as the communal upstairs bathroom, so it wasn't just my bathroom.
And what were you supposed to pay a month?
Before we moved in, I told him, being a graduating senior, that my money was based solely upon receiving periodic financial aid checks, at which time I told him this is how I would be able to pay him whatever money. And so he knew about this situation before.
Tell me what he knew.
He knew that I would be getting financial aid checks each semester.
Fine.
And that
So
from those checks, I would pay him what I could towards the money for living at his place.
Without any set amount? So you could have given him, let's say, $500 for 6 months, and that would have been okay?
No, Your Honor. He wanted to pay, or come to a limit to pay $750 a month.
Ah, okay. You know, I knew if you let you talk long enough, if I let you talk long enough, eventually we were going to get someplace close to the truth, sir. So, according to you, he wanted $750 a month, which you agreed to pay when you got your financial aid checks.
Correct.
How much did you give him?
A little less than $7,500 total.
So that would be for 10 months. Did he give you $7,500?
Overtime, yes.
So how much do you think he owes you?
I've come up with about $6,000.
For what?
Well, it was $750 plus utilities and a sticker for him to park his car. I actually have a breakdown of the whole payment history that I
don't need the
received.
whole payment history. If you acknowledge that he paid you $7,500, that's for 10 months. That means he owes you 3 months' rent, which is $2,250.
Well, do you not include utilities in that?
It does not include utilities,
Our
sir.
agreement included utilities.
Show me in writing.
It was a verbal agreement.
Well, what I'm telling you is, if you allow somebody to live with you for 13 months and do not collect utilities from them on a regular basis, I'm not going to waste my precious time, 2 graduate degrees, and go over month-to-month Con Edison bills. What I'm telling you is, if you got $750 a month from him, Mr. O'Henley, we wouldn't be standing here today.
Exactly.
Okay.
But
and that's exactly what I'm going to give you. $750 a month for 13 months. He's already paid you for 10, which means he owes you $2,250. Now, is there any reason why I shouldn't enter a judgment in that amount, sir?
Just for the living condition that I was provided with when living at this place. This is why he didn't receive, or what I feel he got paid, the full amount of what I was provided living at this place.
That's why we talked about a free country, Mr. Debnam.
Correct. And so that was my only complaint.
Who's the person that's raising her hand that's irritating
I would
me?
agree. Except I just didn't have the opportunity.
Who's the person raising their hand that's irritating me?
This is my fiance. And she's the person who lived with me at this place, not lived, but came and stayed at my place. Or not
So
our
it wasn't only his girlfriend that stayed. Your girlfriend stayed too.
I'm sorry.
Just a second.
4 or 5 days a week.
So it wasn't only his girlfriend that stayed. It was your girlfriend that stayed.
My girlfriend would come there every other weekend and spend the weekend. Correct.
So she stayed. And if she didn't like living there because of the cold and the mold, she wouldn't have come.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
Should have gone to her house. Why not stand there and kvetch, sir, that you didn't like the circumstances and you stayed anyway? Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,250. That's all.
Buxton is suing PR firm owner Juliet Mary for falsely accusing her of an assault. Juliet claims Bisha showed up at her office and attacked her.
Order. All rise. Now, this is case number 16 on the calendar in the matter of Buxton versus Mary.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated.
Miss Buxton, from what I gather in your complaint, you were starting a business that involved making some purses and making clothes. You met the defendant and decided to retain her firm to do some PR work to get your company off the ground. You retained her for 2 or 3 months. You paid her several $1,000s, and you weren't really too happy with the results, except that at some point towards the end of that 3-month period or into the 4th month, she did get a spot for your products on the radio. Now, I don't know how that works because there's something you have to visualize, but assuming that they were going to talk about how beautiful your purses were. And you were supposed to get some of your product down to her office in order to do this PR event. You were angry because the defendant said, listen, you sent them down by Greyhound. We don't have anybody to go and get them. You should have sent them by UPS, FedEx, so that they came directly to our office or to the radio station. You got angry. You got on a plane, and you came down to her office. Okay, so tell me what happened when you came to her place of business.
We had an argument in terms of me stating I would like to get a check, a refund, for this full month of services that you're not going to be my publicist, which was from October the 8th to November the 7th.
So you went down there to get a refund. You were angry. So what happened?
I went into her office. The only thing I said was, when can you cut me a check? She actually told me she could not. I said, when can you cut me a check? She told me she couldn't. As we actually went back and forth, we both started raising our voices. She was screaming loud, telling me to shut up and sit down. I told her, when can you cut me a check? She said, I can't do anything. My attorney's not in the office. I said, well, can you give me something in writing? She said, no, I'm not giving you anything in writing. And again, arguing back and forth, when can you cut me a check? She said she would not. After I seen she wouldn't give me anything in writing, wouldn't give me a refund, I decided to ask her to give me my things. She went in and out of doors, slamming doors, picking up garments, came back, dropped my things on the ground inside a box, said, here you go. I said, that is not all. She said, yes, this is the only thing I have here in the office, and I left.
And how much had you paid her?
$2,125.
Did you have a written contract for that period?
No, we did not.
Why not? You had a contract for the previous 3 months.
I just never signed the actual contract. I have a copy of it. It's not signed.
I'd like to see it.
Sure.
Effective October 6th and ending 3 months thereafter.
Our actual contract runs from October the 8th, though.
Not according to this. This contract should be for an initial period of 3 months, effective October 6th, so that actually you made a payment to her of $21.25, and that was the 10th of October is when this happened. So the unsigned contract had already been in effect for 3 days. Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay. So 3 days into the new contract. Go ahead.
Just from that day?
Just that day.
Okay, so the way that it started was my staff member called me in the morning and said that the client wanted us to go down to Greyhound, which I expressed that's not something we do. We're a professional PR firm. We rep some very large clients, and I'm not a courier service. I don't run down there. It doesn't say that I do in my contract, and I wouldn't do that. That's an out-of-pocket expense that would normally be pre-approved from a client. So I said she needs to make those arrangements to get those bags into our office. She had more than a week to make that arrangement. Previous emails stated she was FedExing and shipping them to us. They needed to be there on the 10th. My staff member expressed this to the client, who apparently became angry with her. I came into the office, called her on the telephone. She became irate on the telephone. She was yelling and swearing to the point where I had everybody in my office standing behind me saying, you know, are you okay?
Don't tell me what everybody was saying.
And I said, I'm sorry, you're going to force me to hang up. I'm going to have to hang up the phone now. You're not letting me finish. I'm going to hang up the phone. Hung up the phone. 2:30 in the afternoon, or 3:30 in the afternoon, I actually wrote her an email saying, wow, you know, that was sort of a silly conversation. I'm hoping we can get past this. Let's not miss this opportunity. Let's roll on. So at 5:30 in the afternoon, I was on the telephone with a colleague, and this person bursts into my lobby of my office, comes bursting right into my office, and she's yelling and she's screaming, she's swearing, and she's in my personal space. And I'm a little alarmed, and I said to my colleague who was in the back room, I said, I think you need to call 911. She's screaming, she's yelling, she's following me around the office, really close to my personal space. It's getting more and more elevated. She asked for her belongings. I had to look for them because they were sent into different publicist office. Pulled all the belongings together. I said, look, you need to take your stuff and get out. She turned her baseball cap around backwards and started posturing, and I thought, oh my God, this lady's really going to hit me. I have never been in a fight. I was very nervous. I yelled for my colleague to call 911 again because it was seeming to take forever. I don't know how long the actual minute was, but it seemed to be forever. I actually picked up the phone and called 911 again with her standing right there because I was starting to feel maybe she didn't think there was somebody in the office or wasn't calling, so I called myself. They said they were on their way. I called my fiancé. I said, I need you to get over here. I'm just terrified right now. I told her, I said, look, you need to sit in the lobby and wait for the police. I'm going to go in my office. I turned to go into my office, and as I shut the door, she kicked and pushed the door, causing me to fall down over some boxes behind. I jammed my wrist and was very startled. And I think at that point she probably realized she'd maybe gone too far, and she just walked out of the office. And we ran and locked the door and waited for the police. And I was shaking, I was terrified, and for weeks afterwards, we kept the door locked. I have mostly females in my office. I kept the door locked. I was afraid checking.
It's not funny.
It's not funny. It's funny because she's not telling the truth.
Well, let me tell you something. You were angry enough to get on a plane. All the while that you were on the plane, which was how long?
1 hour.
1 hour, you were steaming. And I would say that you probably behaved very inappropriately when you got there. That would be an understatement.
Okay.
And she had every right to pick up the phone and call the police and say, someone is in my office. She's creating havoc in my office. She's screaming and yelling. I don't want to hear anymore. I told her to get her stuff and get out. She had every right to call the police. I would have called the police.
Okay.
If you misbehaved, you'd misbehaved. You got to learn you can't misbehave. You're in business.
Right.
So let's not talk about this false report because you misbehaved. And you went to her office and you frightened her and you frightened her employees, and you didn't handle this in a professional manner. You handled it like a spoiled brat who didn't get what she wanted.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I'm going to see what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I went ahead and
mileage.
Just a second. Sorry. I want to see what she's talking about. I can read.
And later today.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
Police officer.
We don't like amoral bums to be on the police force, sir.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Bisha Buxton claims PR firm owner Juliet Mary falsely accused her of an assault. Juliet claims Bisha barged into her office out of control.
Now, if you hired her and if you felt as if she wasn't doing a good job for you, then you shouldn't have even considered an additional 3-month extension on the contract. You did consider.
Well, that wasn't the case, though. She actually was supposed to pick up this package. It's right here in her contract. I have it highlighted.
Listen to me. You must have been satisfied with her services for those
Actually
3
wasn't.
months.
That's why she dropped her rate for me.
Well, $2,000 is a lot of money for a PR firm.
It was
for a new
$3,000.
business.
She dropped her rate.
I said $2,000 is a lot of money for a PR firm for somebody who's just starting a business.
Right.
That's a lot of money. You paid it, and you paid her $3,000 a month for the 3 months immediately preceding that.
Correct.
So it's clear to me that you look like somebody who is sharp enough not to have extended this contract for an additional month, even at a reduced rate, if you weren't satisfied with her first 3 months' worth of representation.
Well, the only reason I did is because she brought about 3 opportunities as our actual contract was ending. Now, all of a sudden,
well, just a second. How long do you think it takes? You think you walk into a PR firm and you give them $3,000 and all of a sudden your product takes off and you're #1, you know, in Fashion Weekly?
No.
It doesn't happen like that.
No.
There's a slow build-up. So after 3 months, if she gets you 3 opportunities, that sounds to me like it may be worth your while.
But
I don't know about that. All I know is you thought enough of her service to extend your contract for another 3 months, and you did so by sending her a check for the first month, and the opportunity that she had for you was in that 4th month with the radio
The opportunity
station.
was in the 3rd month. It was in the month where I was about to end.
When was the radio spot? What date?
In September. I have the email for it. September, along with other spots.
It was October 10th.
It was in September.
No, that's impossible.
Then why would we need
just
to
a
have the
second?
email?
It's impossible. Listen to me. Miss Buxton, when did you send the pocketbooks down? When did you ship them?
October 10th. She told me about
So
the
listen.
opportunity.
You shipped them October 10th.
Okay.
You're telling me you shipped them October 10th for a radio spot that was supposed to take place in September?
She gave me the opportunity in September. She sent me the opportunity.
That's not what I said.
What did you say?
I said the opportunity was in the 4th month of the contract, not when you were notified of the opportunity. I said the opportunity was in the 4th month of the contract.
Okay.
Anything else you want to tell me?
Yes. I do want to let you know that right here in her contract, Juliet was supposed to pay for the carrier service. She actually breached her contract by not paying for that. And that was why I resulted in ending her services on that Monday.
I'm going to see what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, she's
I went ahead
talking
and
about mileage. That is average.
Just a second.
Sorry.
I want to see what she's talking about. I can read.
I went ahead and highlighted it for you.
I can read. Long distance includes carrier charges, MME.
Yeah, that's long distance.
Carrier
long distance
carrier charge. Oh,
telephone.
Long distance includes
Correct.
carrier charges.
Correct.
The long distance carrier.
Correct.
Whether you should have picked this up or not, I mean, I don't know why you would send something by Greyhound anyway.
It needed
I mean,
to,
that's,
you know what? It needed to.
Just a second. I don't know why you would send something if you were being responsible and if you knew you had this thing on the 10th. Why didn't you send it on the 9th or the 8th overnight by FedEx so that they would be there? FedEx, UPS.
I did overnight it.
What?
I did overnight it. I sent it that Sunday.
But you didn't send it to a place where it was going to be received.
I got it there the earliest as possible that Monday morning.
No. You sent it to another location.
That's what the local gas is for. It's in the 125.
I'm asking you why you didn't, like most people...
Because the purses weren't ready. The sewing company was doing additional...
Oh, so you... Just a second. So you weren't ready. The 4th month of the contract had already been started. She is not obligated to give you back any money. She had, in fact, booked something for you to do on the 10th. I think that you behaved very badly on the 10th when you came to her office. I think she had an absolute right to call the police because you frightened her. For some reason, you find your appearance here today amusing. I don't think that you behaved in an amusing fashion. You didn't
It's
behave...
not. It's her story that
You
she's
didn't
telling.
behave professionally. No, it's common sense. It's common sense that you were stewing, that you were fuming when you got on that plane and came down to her office for an hour. You were stewing that hour on the plane. You didn't walk into her office in a professional manner. You walked into her office loaded for bear. And because she didn't cut you a check at that point, there was a lot of yelling, a lot of bad language, a lot of slamming doors. It was not a pretty picture. And it was something that should have been handled far more professionally by you, not by her. If you're going to be in business, you have to handle things professionally.
She actually was screaming and yelling and cussing. She
didn't come to your house. She didn't come. Listen to me.
She hung up in my face, though.
She didn't hang up in your face, madam. She hung up on you because you were screaming.
She was screaming as well, though.
Miss Buxton.
Okay.
If you want to have a business and you want to be a successful business person, you got to learn to control your temper. Sometimes things go smoothly and sometimes they don't. Okay. I am certain that you were not happy with the ladies or the gentlemen who were sewing your pocketbooks that didn't have them ready on time. That be a fair statement?
Probably so, but it was on time. I have an email stated, as long as I got the bags in there by the 10th of October.
Where, into the Greyhound bus terminal?
That is correct.
You have an email that says, as long as your purses arrive at the Greyhound bus terminal by the 10th, it's sufficient time?
Not by Greyhound,
right.
But in...
That's what I'm saying to you.
Her 125 was for gas and local mileage.
How much was the plane ride to Los Angeles?
It was $200.
Money not well spent, madam. Your case is dismissed.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I actually went in there, she argued, she yelled, shut up and sit down.
The really pathetic thing about it is had the attack not happened, I probably would have tried to work something out with her.
And then she made a false police report and a false restraining order.
But then her coming after me and battering me and having to get a restraining order and the trouble it concerned.
That was absolutely inappropriate. She hung up in my face. She should have never done it.
Yeah, I can honestly say that's the first time that I was almost in a chick fight.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Siri versus Carvello. Step forward.
24-year-old Samantha Siri is suing her ex-boyfriend, 25-year-old Michael Carvello, for an unpaid loan for a plane ticket. Michael says the ticket was a gift.
Mr. Carvello, how old are you, sir?
25, ma'am.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a bouncer at a bar.
And how long have you been doing that?
Approximately 8 months.
What'd you do before that?
I was working part-time, just odd jobs.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
Police officer.
What are you doing in order to train yourself for that?
Just taking classes right now, going through schooling, extra schooling.
What extra schooling? Don't play with me. What extra schooling? You need a bachelor's degree or an associate's degree?
You don't need neither for...
So what classes are you taking?
Just side criminal justice type classes.
Where?
Community college.
What courses are you currently taking?
Administration of justice.
Yes.
And law classes.
How many classes are you taking?
2.
Administration of justice.
Yes, ma'am.
What else?
Introduction to law.
Okay. You met the plaintiff. According to you, she made a gift to you of a plane ticket.
Correct.
She says it was a loan. She wants her money. When did you meet her, Mr. Carvello?
I believe it was late October, early November.
And what did you need a plane ticket for?
The plane ticket was for a trip to Phoenix, Arizona.
For what?
Just to go along with a friend for a weekend trip.
Why were you going with your friend to Phoenix, Arizona if you couldn't afford to go?
He was going to see some family, and I wanted to go along with him.
Well, why were you going, sir, if you didn't have the money to go?
Just to accompany him, have a weekend
You
away.
didn't have the money to go.
That is correct.
So what did you do?
I mentioned the situation to Samantha.
Well, what did you say when you mentioned the situation, Mr. Carvello?
I told her I had a friend of mine going to Arizona, and I'd like to go with him. The plane ticket was a little bit of money, and I didn't quite have it, and she had offered to...
No, the plane ticket was a little bit of money. We're talking about words. Plane ticket was a little bit of money.
Correct.
Did you tell her how much money?
Approximately, yes, I did give her a range.
Well, did she give you a range of money, or did she buy the ticket?
No, she gave me a range of money, Your Honor.
What range of money did she give you?
$325.
How much was the plane ticket?
I believe it was about $300.
Well, Mr. Carvello, you just told me a moment ago that you didn't quite have the money for the plane ticket. How much did you have?
I couldn't afford it.
No, that's not what you told me. You told me that you told Miss Seri that you didn't quite have it, which would suggest to a person of reasonable intelligence who wants to be a police officer that you had most of it, but you were short a little bit. So how much did you have?
Maybe $100. Some spending money, maybe.
You get where I'm going?
Vaguely.
Now, when did she give you the money, sir?
I believe it was around the middle of November.
What date?
Right around the 15th, I believe.
And you went when to Phoenix?
Towards the end of the month. I believe the 23rd, 4th.
Between the 15th and the 23rd, did you see Miss Seri?
Yes, a few times.
When did you finally decide that she wasn't for you?
It was a little bit after I returned from the trip.
So right after she gave you the money?
You could say that.
Mr. Carvello, we don't like amoral bums to be on the police force, sir. Amoral bums belong doing other odd jobs. You have a copy of the check?
Yeah.
I'd like to see it, please. Mr. Carvello, you're really very fortunate that I'm not wiping up the floor with you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, because if you're in a committed long-term relationship and somebody wants to be nice to you and make a gift to you of some money for something that is a non-essential thing, like joining a buddy to go on a weekend, I can see maybe in that kind of a relationship there's give and take. But if she gave you this money, and shortly after her giving you the money, according to her, she went into the bar where you work and you totally ignored her. Is that what happened?
We went out together, another bar where he doesn't work, but then after that was completely rude, and then I had no more contact with him.
Then it seems to me that what you do is you say, I'm going to give you back the money, even though we didn't have a time frame or whatever. But this was, in fact, a loan. He did say he was going to return it to you.
Yes, he did.
When did he say he was going to return it to you?
In about a week.
Yeah. Mr. Carvello, either you have to do something to buttress your moral fiber, sir, or you have to pick a different profession.
Sure.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $325. Would you do me a favor? Find him the door.
5-year-old Nicole Newton is suing her former friend, Michael Danner, for rolling her Jeep. Nicole says the accident was a result of a heated argument.
Yeah, that's case number 7 on the calendar in the matter of Newton versus Danner. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat.
Miss Newton, Mr. Danner was a friend of yours?
Yes, ma'am.
There were 4 people traveling in a car. It was your car?
Yes, ma'am.
At some point, Mr. Danner took control of the car, you say without your permission, and he wrecked it.
Yes.
Mr. Danner acknowledges that he took your car. Mr. Danner acknowledges that he took your car without your permission. And Mr. Danner acknowledges that he wrecked the car. So far, correct, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
His defense is that he took the car because he feared for his safety, and it was the only way to get away from a situation that was dangerous. When did this happen, Miss Newton?
November 17th of 2005. It was about 5 o'clock in the evening.
Who was in the car?
My husband, Craig, was driving.
Is that him?
Yes. And myself was in the passenger front seat, and then Mike Danner and Peggy Thornton were in the back seat of the vehicle.
What happened?
Me, Mike, and Peggy had just got off from work in Plattsburgh, and I gave him rides to work. We all worked together in a factory, and we were come back to St. Joe and picked up my husband to take him to get his paycheck in Atchison, Kansas. And sometime in between the factory where he works at and going back over the Kansas Bridge into Missouri, where we live at, there was a heated argument about several different things, one of them being an affair that happened between Mike's ex-girlfriend and my husband. And
Mike's
ex-girlfriend.
Ex-girlfriend and your husband.
Yes, and Mike got really excited, kind of upset, agitated, and jumped out of the vehicle on the Mocan Bridge, which is in between Kansas and Missouri. And me and Peggy got him back into the car in the back seat, and he proceeded to start beating on Peggy in the back seat. We tried to get into the back of the vehicle to get him off of Peggy, but both rear doors were locked, and my husband, Craig, he decided to go over the seats at Mike, and there was a struggle or some sort, and then Mike was in the front seat, and the next thing I know, I woke up next to the side of the road because I'd been hit with the car door on the back of my head. When he pulled it into gear, it locked in reverse, so he had to push the button to pull it down into drive to take off with it, and then he proceeded. My husband told me he dragged him a good half a block up the road when he was taking the vehicle. And then he went for help when I was knocked out, and the police come, and 2 farmers came and told me my Jeep was up a half mile up the road, flipped over, and no sign of Mike or Peggy, and they were both in the vehicle when it took off.
When he took off, where was Peggy? Still in the back seat?
Yeah, she was still in the rear.
Stand up. Were you in the car when the car flipped over?
Yes, ma'am.
You were in the back seat of the car?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Dana was driving the car, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Prior to Mr. Dana driving the car, was he sitting in the back passenger seat next to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Did he go over the front seat?
Yes, ma'am.
When he took off, did you say anything to him?
Yes, ma'am. I said to please stop or slow down.
You yelled?
I yelled.
Did he answer you?
No.
While he was sitting in the back seat of the car next to you, did he hit you?
Yes, ma'am.
How many times?
At least 3.
You may be seated. I'm very effective.
I know.
So no matter how much rehearsing you did, it doesn't help.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand? Now, Mr. Dana, you're going to explain to me your answer, which quite frankly I found slightly convoluted, why you are not responsible to the damage to Miss Newton's car. So far, let me tell you what we know to be the fact. You were driving this car. You took it without permission. You took it after you were assaulting your girlfriend. You did not get out of the car. You jumped over the front seat. You were driving too fast because that's what she says.
I never assaulted her, though.
Your Honor,
Is she still your girlfriend?
Yeah.
You think that this lady would say that you hit her when you didn't hit her?
She was drunk. That's one thing we left out. We was all drunk.
She may be drunk. Then she would say to me, I don't remember him hitting me. Mr. Dana, she would say, I don't remember.
Yeah.
But your girlfriend, with whom you probably slept last night, is not going to tell me, a perfect stranger, that you hit her at least 3 times when you didn't. Do you understand?
Maybe I was drunk and I don't remember.
Oh, that's perfect. That I like. Were you drunk?
Oh, yeah. We was drunk.
You were drunk?
Yeah.
So you had no business driving the car?
Nope, we shouldn't. None of us should have never been driving. It never would have happened.
Unfortunately, Mr. Dana, nobody was driving the car except you when it flipped over.
No, we was drunk when we got off work.
Listen to me very carefully, Mr. Dana. You had the misfortune of being behind the wheel, driving too fast when the car flipped over. Now, on November 17th, if I were a drinking person, I might have been drunk. If Bird were a drinking person, he might have been drunk. But that wouldn't have made any difference because we weren't driving the car.
Exactly. So
You would listen to
I
me.
wouldn't be driving with you,
You
if you was
were
drunk.
driving.
Would you get in that car with me and drive if I was drunk right now?
What did he say?
Would you get in the car and drive with me if I was drunk right now, knowing I was drunk? Would you get in the car and drive
Listen
with me?
to me, sir.
I'm listening to you.
No, you're not. I think maybe it'll be helpful if you take your hands out of your pockets.
Yes, ma'am.
And uncross them. Hands at your sides. You chose to get into the car with the plaintiff and her husband. If they were all drinking and you got into the car with them, that's your choice. If the car had flipped over with her driving the car and she was drunk and you were hurt, she would have been responsible for your injuries. Do you understand?
So they should be responsible for my girlfriend's injuries. When I was driving, their insurance should be.
What law school did you graduate from, Mr. Danner?
Missouri Department of Corrections.
As an inmate?
Yeah.
There you go. People who graduate from prison law school, sir, very rarely get to the Supreme Court. In the history of this nation, nobody has ever made it to the Supreme Court who's a graduate of prison law school. So why don't you stop being a wise guy and just listen? Because I guarantee you, in this little discourse that we're having, you're not going to win.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You can't pick your relatives. You can, however, pick your friends.
Yes, ma'am.
I suggest you slough off this group.
And later today,
Were you going on trial for a felony?
Yes.
He was convicted of his
I was
charges.
not convicted.
You were found guilty.
There was no witnesses in that. There was nothing, so it's just sick.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Nicole Newton says former friend Michael Danner owes for rolling her Jeep on the highway. Michael says the accident happened when he was attacked by Nicole's husband.
Now, I want you in 30 seconds or less tell me why you're not responsible for the damage to Miss Newton's car.
For one, I was in fear of my life because her husband was beating me up once, and he told me he was going to beat me up again. And she jumped out of a Jeep with a billy club, so I took off, and basically that's it. And we should have never been drinking and driving. Nobody should be drinking and driving a vehicle.
That's your defense?
Yep, that's my defense.
Can I see the estimate on the damage, please? What an idiot.
Your Honor, there's one here that has the list of labor and parts from the dealer, and then the other one's just a printout of just the parts, which is what we were asking for.
How long has he been your boyfriend?
Almost a year.
You have children?
No.
Perfect. You have photographs of the car?
Yeah.
I'd like to see them, please.
I have also this one. If you want to give her that one, it's all. Okay.
They going to be able to fix this car?
Yeah, we've already started on it, Your Honor, out of our own pocket expense, just because that's my only means of transportation.
Is the limit in your small claims court $3,000?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that why you're only suing for $3,000?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. You can't, Miss Newton, pick your relatives. You can, however, pick your friends.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Sometimes life gives us an advantage, and we're able to, despite the fact that we're stuck with relatives, we can get rid of them if they are not a positive part of our lives, right?
Yeah.
But it's certainly much easier to do with friends.
Yeah.
Right? I suggest you slough off this group. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,000. That's all.
Thank you.
Parties are excused and they step out.
Don't think they should have won. They're a bunch of losers and meth heads anyway.
No, I don't use crystal meth. I'd pee for somebody today.
He was beating on her. I went around to try to stop him, pull him off of her.
He says that his girlfriend was flashing somebody, but I didn't see it.
She was flashing Mr. Newton, and she was drunk.
Well, 3 balls of Jack Daniels, what would you be doing?
He jumped in the front, tore off, drugged me 50, 60 foot down the gravel road as I was trying to stop him, and rolled us both in the ditch.
We learned a lot, actually. I mean, he was a real long-term friend, him and his son, and no longer.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Willis versus Hunter. Step forward.
Nellie Willis is suing her daughter's ex-boyfriend, 23-year-old Walter Hunter, for unpaid credit card charges. Nellie claims she was trying to help Walter establish his credit.
Miss Willis, are you a working lady?
Yes, I am.
What kind of work do you do?
I work for the Department of Defense, United States Air Force, as a tool and parts attendant.
How long have you been doing that?
18 years.
What about you, Mr. Hunter? What kind of work do you do?
I'm an electrician. I also work on Tinker Air Force Base.
Miss Willis, you don't make a whole bunch of money, do you?
No.
I'm going to give you and anybody else out there who wants to listen some very good advice. Never, never get somebody a credit card. Children, brothers, sisters, friends, don't ever give somebody a credit card, which is what you did. You gave Mr. Hunter, who was then your daughter's boyfriend, a credit card. Put your hands off your hips. Ostensibly to help him build up his credit. You did that in 2003 while they were still together. Mr. Hunter proceeded to use the credit card. I gather from your statement that you did not use this credit card at all. Is that right?
Yes, I did use the credit card.
Well, do you expect me to go through 3 years' worth of statements to see what he purchased and what you purchased?
No, I have the statements, but it was only for 3 months.
He only made purchases for 3 months?
Yes.
Okay, then I'll take a look at it. And then you say he made payments sporadically, then he stopped making payments 2004. He and your daughter broke up. He asked you to extend him a little bit of time because you were going on trial, sir. Is that right, for a felony?
No, I paid her.
Were you going on
payments...
trial for a felony?
Yes.
And according to the plaintiff, she said, fine, we'll wait until the trial is over, because she had those expenses. You were tried and I assume acquitted, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And then she expected you to continue to make the payments on the credit card.
Your Honor, he was convicted of his charges.
I was not convicted, Your Honor.
If he was convicted, he probably wouldn't be here today. This was a serious felony, according to you.
Which has nothing to do with the case.
Well, it has to do with your veracity, sir, and whether or not you could stand there and lie to me.
Okay.
That's what it has to do with. I mean, it is an issue. And notice I was very careful not to get into the particulars of the case because it is particularly sensitive. And if you were, in fact, acquitted, I certainly didn't want to reveal the nature of the charges. But if what you're telling me is that it really has nothing to do with it, now I'm going to see a statement that you have that would indicate that this young man told me a lie. Sir, it says here that you pled guilty.
To a deferred sentence.
To what?
It was a deferred sentence.
I didn't ask you what the sentence was. You weren't acquitted. It said here you pled guilty. That's not acquitted.
It's acquitted.
No, it isn't. And you know it.
Well, it is acquitted after a period of time. It's 5 years.
Now, the state recommends 5 years deferred until 1/23/11. Unsupervised probation, you were fines and costs. The court accepts the plea recommendation.
I accept, but what I'm saying is, after that 5 years, it goes away, so it's acquitted, basically.
That's not true.
Yes, it is.
No, sir.
That's what I was
You were
told.
found guilty, and you were found guilty by your own plea of guilty. The sentence was deferred. You had a deferred sentence for 5 years. Who was the complainant in that case?
The state.
Okay. Now, according to your complaint, you gave him a period of time where he didn't have to pay on this credit card because he was on trial for this very serious felony. And he asked you for a little bit of latitude because he had expenses. Did you pay your lawyer?
Yes, I did. And then she had a problem with my character before. She should have did an OCN check on me before I dated her daughter or came near anything near your house.
Miss, don't speak to her.
The fact
Don't
that
speak
she
to her.
brings it up now is irrelevant.
Now, the charges, sir, are not necessarily relevant to this proceeding. The fact that you lied to me when you said you were acquitted of those charges is in fact relevant because you told me you were acquitted of those charges with the same look on your face as you were answering all my other questions, so I believed you. And unless she had the court documents which indicate that you were found guilty of those charges and only sentence was deferred and you were found guilty by virtue of your own plea, and you had had a lawyer from the very beginning advise you, a lawyer who you paid, so the lawyer told you that by pleading guilty you would be found guilty. And the only thing that was being deferred was the sentence, if in fact you paid fines.
Yeah, it's been paid. It paid off. I paid that off.
Well, and that's why you asked her for a little time so that she would have to cover these bills that were on the credit card. That's her statement. Now I believe her.
I was acquitted of the charges, the original charges. What I was guilty for were different charges.
Sir, you keep insisting. Notice, I did not say what the charge was. What did you plead guilty to?
To using a computer to break an Oklahoma statute. That's what I was charged for.
You're a fancy dancer, sir. You were originally charged with rape. What did you plead guilty to?
No guilt, not guilty. I wasn't.
What did you plead guilty to? Using a computer? Is that what you're telling me? On a rape charge, you pled guilty to using a computer?
No, I didn't. I was not guilty for that. And that's why there was no witnesses in that. There was nothing, so there was the witnesses wouldn't the witness of the girl wouldn't show up.
Would you show this to him, please? Tell him to look at the highlighted charges.
This is sick.
Are you contesting any of those charges, sir?
No, ma'am.
$4,735. Now, How much did you repay her?
I paid her for what I felt was reasonable to what I felt I owed her.
How much did you pay her?
I paid her over $700-something.
Let's say you paid her $700, sir.
Okay.
And some of this was back 2 years.
Can I explain? There was over $4,000 in charges.
No, there were $4,735 in charges, and that's without any interest. So if you hadn't paid all of this amount, probably close to $6,000 or more that you owe her. Now explain to me, you paid her $700, that would bring the total down to $5,300.
Well,
Explain the rest.
I did date her daughter for a long period of time. I spent a lot of time out at their house. I did a lot of work because I was unemployed off and on. So her mom gave me duties such as, yard work. They had lived on property. I built computers for her. I did computer service work for her. I filmed and taped an older daughter of hers, her wedding. I edited it, made DVDs for it. A lot of work, and I never got paid for it. And the money I should have been paid for that, I would have been making my credit card payments with that money, but she never paid me. So I used the credit card as payment. I never got paid for anything. She thinks she can feed me peanuts.
Is this your husband? Yeah. Good luck to you. Your parents like him?
Yes.
Yeah, I doubt that. I doubt that a whole bunch. You have children?
Is suing his neighbors, Tammy Coleman, and her son, 17-year-old Marquise Peppers, for an assault. George claims Marquise pushed him to the ground during an argument.
Order. All rise. It's case number 152 on the calendar, the matter of Heath versus Coleman. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat.
Mr. Heath, Mrs. Coleman is your neighbor, and this is her son.
Affirmative.
Hmm?
Affirmative.
You are 17.
Yes, ma'am.
But large for your age.
Yes.
And it is your claim that Miss Coleman's son assaulted you.
Assault and battery, ma'am.
Depends on where you live. And you want to be compensated. And Miss Coleman and her son say that you started it, and he just finished it. So, I'm going to start with you. What's your first name?
Marquise.
How long have you and Mr. Heath been neighbors?
I don't know how long he's lived there, but I lived there for 2 years.
How long have you been there, Mr. Heath?
Since May of 2006.
So a little less than a year.
Affirmative.
A year. Have you gotten along for that year that you've been living there?
Up until recently.
What happened recently, Mr. Heath?
On April 25th of 2007, I was outside my door. Mr. Peppers was also outside his door. He was calling me a pedophile. He was saying I should never, never, never say the name of his little sister. I admit I may have started behavior that was more of an interest to a proctologist. But
I don't know what you mean by that, sir.
I was upset that being called a pedophile after 30 years of being a registered nurse here in California.
So he was calling you names and told you never to mention the name of his sister. What did you say to him?
Well, he challenged his authority by claiming that if I said the name of his sister one more time, that he would beat me down. Being that I was very upset because of the general rumor within the neighborhood of me being a pedophile, I did say her name. Her name is Sanji.
And then what happened?
I repeated it a few times as he came
So you taunted
closer.
him. You were a grown-up.
Yes, I was an angry
You were a
grown-up.
grown-up. You were an angry grown-up.
Yes.
And he had called you a vile name.
Quite,
ahead.
especially when I have no record anywhere.
I understand you have no record anywhere.
Okay.
Got it. So you were taunting him, and what did he do?
He pushed me, and then,
How did he push you, Mr. Heath?
I do believe, I will take his word for it, that he belly bumped me.
Okay.
I turned to catch myself, and I was struck on the back. I cannot say exactly if it was him or his friend LJ, but I did sustain an injury
LJ
to my
with
back.
him?
He was right next to him, shoulder to shoulder.
So they both came over to you after you had repeated his sister's name several times.
Affirmative.
And he belly bumped you. When you turned around, somebody hit you in the back.
Yes, well, turning around in that, I was trying to catch myself as I was falling.
And as a result of that, were you injured?
Yes, I have a report from my chiropractor that I have injuries from T6, that's thoracic spine vertebrae 6 to 7. These were significant enough for me not to be able to work for 2 months. which I have documentation from my employer of such.
All right, Mr. Pepper, let me hear you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. On the day of that incident, the day before, we had got into like 2 days before we got into an argument.
About what?
I was sitting outside because my friend stayed next door to him, and I was sitting outside talking to them, and then my sister.
Talking to whom?
My friends that stay next door to him. And so I'm sitting outside, and then my mom calls me, and she sent my sister to come get me. And my sister comes, and she says, "Marquise, your mom wants you." And then so he reaches over, and she's in between these stairs. And he reaches over and pats her on the head. And I say, "Man, don't touch my sister."
Why not?
Because, like, I don't know what it is, but ever since he's moved there, I've been, like, you know, real uncomfortable around him. And he's, like, he acts real, you know, friendly and stuff towards kids, like, you know, little girls. And I just, with my sister, I keep, you know, I'm overprotective about my sister. And so...
But he just touched her on the top of the head.
I know, but it was, like, the way how he did it. Like, you know, he rubbed his hand through her hair. And, like, you know, and I didn't like the way it happened, but I wasn't disrespectful to him. I just said, "Can you don't
Fine.
touch my sister?"
You said, "Don't touch my sister." That's all you said to him.
Yeah, but as I said that, my mom walked out, and I told her what happened. And then so they got into an argument, and...
Why did you get into an argument, Miss Coleman, with him?
As I walked out, I heard George yelling at my son, and all I heard was the end of the conversation, and I asked him...
What did you hear?
He was calling my son ignorant and a pervert for saying what he said or whatever.
Well, did you say anything to him?
I said, "Don't touch my sister's head," and he called me a pervert because he said that I was looking at him as that, like, I don't know why he said it, but he just called me a pervert because I told him not to touch my sister.
And then?
That's when I came out.
Yes.
And I heard them arguing, and my son said, George touched Sanji, and that's when I went to tell him he doesn't have to put his hands on her, do not touch her.
Did your son tell you how he touched her?
No, well,
why didn't you get that information, Miss Coleman?
I did. When I came over, he said he touched Sanji on the head. And right then, when she said he touched Sanji, I just verbally told him, you know, to keep his hands off my daughter, and I asked my children to come into our yard.
Okay, so that was a couple of days before.
Yes, ma'am.
And then what happened, Mr. Pepper?
And then the day of the incident, we were outside, you know, we played basketball and all of that outside, and George comes out and was playing the guitar to the little girl in the window, and I was just sitting there.
Playing a guitar?
Yeah, playing a guitar and singing to her. But he's sitting there playing a guitar to her, and that's not my relative or anything, so I didn't say anything about that. And somehow he got into an argument with other kids that was on the block, and so they were arguing, and somehow they said to him something about, "Oh, you touch kids and stuff," and he was like, "Yeah, I touch a lot of kids." And he started naming off kids on the street, like girls and stuff that he's touched, and then he somehow said Sanji's name, my sister. And then so that was when I got into the conversation, and I asked him, I said, "Man, don't talk about my sister."
Did you call him a pedophile?
No, I've never called him a pedophile.
Did you call him a pervert?
No, I've never called him a pervert.
What did you call him?
I didn't call him anything. I just said, "Do not touch my sister."
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
So I had chest bumped him, and he just stumbled back and hit the wall and purposely fell to the ground. And he made a lot of like weird noise and stuff that, you know, you could tell that it was being acted.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. George Heath claims neighbor 17-year-old Marquise Peppers falsely accused him of being a pedophile and then assaulted him.
Okay, and what did he say to you?
And he got into an argument with me, calling me a pervert and that I'm immature and stuff because I'm calling him out on stuff. And I'm like, you know, I didn't say anything. All I said was, "Don't touch my sister." And then so we're sitting here, we're arguing, and I stepped back, and my friend was with me also, and he was talking to him. He was like, "There's no need for you to say her name." And I pulled him back, and we're about to walk away. And George says it again. He was like, "Oh, what do you mean, Sanji?" And I was like, "Don't say her name." And then so he takes off his glasses, and he untucks his shirt, and he steps up to me, and he says, "What do you mean, Sanji? Sanji, Sanji?" And so I had chest bumped him, and he, you know, it was like a fake stumble type, and he just stumbled back and hit the wall and purposely fell to the ground. And he made a lot of like weird noise and stuff that, you know, you could tell that it was being act. And like some kids was laughing at him and stuff because he was acting it out. And his wife said, "I'm calling the police." And then so I looked at him, and then I turned around and my sister was calling me. So I turned around, picked up my sister, and then I told my friend, I was like, "Let's go." And then we walked to his house.
Mr. Pepper.
Yes, ma'am.
What facts do you have that suggest to you that Mr. Heath's intentions with regard to the kids who play in the neighborhood, either singing to them or patting your sister on the head is anything other than just genuine caring for children.
It's because of the way that he does it. It's like it's real weird. You know, I don't feel comfortable around him, and for that, I don't feel that my sister should be around him. I've never been disrespectful to him or anything.
You assaulted him, sir.
No, ma'am, but
yes, you did.
Incident,
you assaulted him, sir. He was taunting you, which is not very smart of a grown-up man to do.
Yes, ma'am.
Not very smart to a big 17-year-old, you know, who certainly outweighs him and certainly outmuscles him. But you have no right to put your body on him in any way. You should have been smarter, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Now,
but I had to confront the lie.
Mr. Heath, have you ever been arrested for a sexual offense on a child?
No, ma'am.
The next question is irrelevant, therefore, and you've never been convicted. Is that correct?
No, ma'am.
You have any children of your own?
Yes, ma'am. We have 4 biological children and 1 foster child.
How old is the foster child?
She is 32.
So you raised her?
Affirmative.
And your 4 children, how old are they?
We have a boy who's now Sergeant George Heath of the 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment. We have twin boys, Pete and Repeat. One is Staff Sergeant Joseph Heath of the 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment. Our other son is Specialist David Heath, who recently was, last week, was taken out by shrapnel in Baghdad, but he's doing just fine. He'll be in the United States today. And then my daughter, Rebecca Heath, she's 23. She's a certified nurse's aide and a senior in health administration.
Have any of these children visited your home?
Yes.
You live in your home with your wife?
Yes.
How long have you been married?
31 years, ma'am.
Mr. Pepper.
Yes, ma'am.
We are supposed to rejoice in the differences among people in this country. That means that not everybody is made the same.
I know that.
Some people say affirmative rather than yes. Some people may appear to be, to you, a little peculiar, but that doesn't make them a pervert.
No, ma'am,
That doesn't make them strange. That wouldn't inspire me to say to somebody who's the father of 4 children, don't put your hands on my sister. Now, if you said to me that he hit her in the behind or tapped her in the butt, I would say, go over there and you can knock his lights out. But what you told me was he patted her on the head, and you just didn't like the way that looked. And you went outside, and all you heard was your son saying to you, he touched your daughter, and you blew. You didn't listen. I think that what you have to do is celebrate the differences amongst people, Mr. Pepper. You have perfect right to say to your daughter, listen, I don't want you to go over to neighbors, strangers, or whatever. But your son has absolutely no business, despite the fact that Mr. Keith was not smart.
Yes, ma'am.
Has no right to go over there and chest bump him, belly bump him, or whatever other kind of bump him he did. His lawsuit asks for $1,700. He's going to get that. You have a counterclaim. Counterclaim is that he filed false charges against you with Child Protective Services. When did he file charges against you with Child Protective Services?
Per the letter, it says on 5/2 that there was an investigation.
And what makes you think that it was Mr. Heath who filed those charges?
Okay, when we went to court for our restraining order, that was denied. Mr. Heath subpoenaed the CP.
Who went to court for a restraining order?
George filed a restraining order on me and my son.
Well, he should have.
Right.
Your son used force against him.
Right.
Was it granted?
No, they were both denied.
Oh, that's ridiculous. In my judgment, it's ridiculous. What grounds do you have to file for an application for a protective order against Mr. Heath?
Because when the incident happened, my daughter constantly goes over there, and it's like everywhere my daughter is, he's behind her. Like it's in a place that he goes across the street that my daughter plays at. He's never over there, but every time my daughter is over there, George is over there. You know what I'm saying? It's like it seems like everywhere my daughter is, I see George, normal places where he doesn't go. He's normally in his yard. Like he comes in my yard and uses the water hose. He was told by the judge, he was told by the police officers that he keeps calling on me to stay away from us. We were told to stay away from each other. I agreed. But he constantly, like if my daughter's in the yard, I don't let her out the yard because of the situation. I'll make her stay in the yard and ride the bike. George will come over, open the gate, and use the water hose, or, you know, just do stuff to, you know, to have me try to have confrontation towards us.
What proof do you have that Mr. Heath call?
I don't have proof that he called, but for our restraining order, he had all the information. How does he know that CPS came to my house? When we went to court, he filed a subpoena for the CPS worker to come to our restraining order. That's how I assumed that he called, because...
Did you have that information, Mr. Heath?
The reason I know that Ms. Johnson is a child protective worker is that she was at Ms. Coleman's door, and when I saw her, and I said, I don't think Ms. Coleman's there. She asked, you know, who are you? I identified myself and where I live, and then she identified herself, and we went into my apartment, and we had a discussion concerning, well, actually, one of the things we discussed is whether or not I am a pedophile. Obviously, I'm here, not arrested, so she felt there was no basis for the allegation that I'm a pedophile.
Did you make a call to Child Protective Services, sir?
Can I leave that under confidentiality?
See what I'm saying?
Well,
yes or no? I'll answer if you, if you want me to.
The point is, Mr. Heath, if you had grounds in your judgment to place a call to Child Protective Services, because that's her counterclaim, she says that you had no basis. She believes that you did call.
Okay, that would be a different question. Would I have, if I called, would I have a basis? The answer is yes, I would.
Well, tell me what basis you had if you had called.
Okay.
Got it.
I'm sorry, I don't consider that very funny. The basis I have is that I have seen her use the most unusual type of child rearing, curse words at her daughter. I've seen her with an open hand strike her daughter in the head. Also, I am quite suspicious that her daughter has some type of minimal brain damage. I'm not sure if it's cerebral palsy like my wife.
Shh, quiet. You can't be quiet, you'll leave. Do you understand? Good. Go ahead.
I am not sure if it's cerebral palsy, or I'm not sure if it's attention deficit disorder, but I know she has fine motor coordination problems because one of the things I have done with the children is to plant a garden. And when Sanji came up to plant, she could not follow my simple instructions that I could get children half her age to do. So I'm just...
Put your hand down. Go ahead.
I am quite concerned. I do know...
Okay, so that would be the basis. If you had called...
If I had called.
If you had called, that would be the reason that you called.
Affirmative.
Go ahead.
Okay. As far as me, the allegation was that I called my daughter the B word and I hit her with an open fist. My daughter is really, I would never, I do not use that word. I don't like that word. I don't like to be called that word because my mother called me that, and I would never call my children that, no matter how angry or what we were going through. So that's just ridiculous. And as far as me hitting my daughter with an open fist, there's just no...
Open hand.
Yeah, open hand. There's no way. I don't... You can ask my son. She doesn't even get in trouble, so I don't even know.
Your counterclaim is denied. You owe Mr. Heath $1,700, which is what he's asking for this assault. Mr. Heath may be a peculiar man. He may not have exercised good judgment when he taunted you by repeating your sister's name. It doesn't give you license to put your hand or your body, and you have a big body, sir, on another human being. You have no right to do that. As I said, there is no indication today that Mr. Heath is anything other than maybe a slight bit odd.
I resemble that remark.
Right. But that's it. And we celebrate that kind of stuff in this country. You have an absolute right to say to your daughter, I don't want you to play with Mr. Heath. I don't want you alone with him. Don't go to his house. But you can't put your hands on him. Do you get it?
Yes, ma'am.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,700. That's all.
Is suing his adopted son, 22-year-old Christopher Nelson, for the value of a Corvette. Dennis claims Christopher illegally sold the vehicle.
Order. All rise. Yeah, this is case number 171 on the calendar, the matter of Nelson versus Nelson. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat.
Mr. Nelson, this is your son.
Yes.
You were married to his mother, and did you formally adopt him?
Yes.
And you are now divorced from his mother? When was that divorce?
September.
Of?
06.
According to your complaint, you believe that your son owes you for a car that you gave to him, titled in his name, but with a condition. And the condition was the car would be returned to you if and when he joined the Navy.
He told me he was already signed up for the Navy in January.
Right. So that was the condition that you indicated.
To get him off of a motorcycle that he was riding rather recklessly.
Right. And you said to him, here's a car, putting it in your name. When you go into the Navy, I want you to give it back.
Right.
Did you ever go into the Navy?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Nelson, I read your whole complaint, and your whole complaint has sort of a convoluted story about certain trust that you had in your son to do the right thing. He took the car, he sold it to somebody else, then he took it back, then he sold it to another person. Bottom line is, I read your complaint very carefully, sir, and your complaint is clear. Even if I believe what you said in your complaint, which was you gave him this car, you transferred the title to him, is that correct? He insured the car himself, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you pay for the insurance yourself?
Yes, Your Honor.
And how long did you drive the car?
Only for a couple months, Your Honor.
Then you sold it and bought something else.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Nelson, stop playing with your papers.
Okay.
Because you're not going to understand what I'm saying to you unless you pay attention.
Gotcha.
If I believe what you say in your complaint, you made him a conditional gift. And the condition of that gift was that the car would be returned to you when he entered the Navy. But he has not entered the Navy.
Okay.
So how can you get the car back? Or the value of the car?
Okay.
Do you understand? I know that you're angry with him. I don't know exactly why. Maybe we can resolve that. But the conditional gift that you made to him it becomes a permanent gift if he never joins the Navy. Is it your intention to join the Navy?
No, Your Honor.
Why not?
I decided to keep pursuing my medical field that I am now.
And not join the Navy? Okay. Ever. When did you give him the car, Mr. Nelson, just for my own information?
September 27, 06.
And you titled it in that same month. And when did you sell the car, sir?
Down in October, around.
Who'd you sell it to?
I didn't personally meet them. My stepfather actually had it in Desert Hot Springs, and he sold it for me.
To whom did you sell it?
To a private party out of Banning.
Stand up. How much did you sell it for?
Your Honor, Christopher owed me some money, so he had gotten another vehicle. So in lieu of the money that he owed me,
what did he owe you money for?
Personal loans.
Explain it to me.
Just everyday living, helping him with insurance, paying for some of his tuitions through furthering his education in the EMS field, things of that nature.
How much did he owe you?
About $4,500. Educations are expensive.
How long have you been married to his mother?
Since July of 06.
You were divorced in September of 06. So how could you be married in July of 06?
It was a typo on the court's behalf, and we're since straightening that out in litigation.
What do you mean you're straightening that out? What does that mean?
Well, what it means is there was a typo that instead of putting a 9 when the divorce would have been finalized, it would look like a 7. So we went forward with the wedding. Come to find out later that it was a typo, so we're in litigation now at the courts to rectify that.
Why don't you just get married again?
We will, sir. Ma'am, when we're done with this. Pardon me.
May I reiterate?
Just a second. So let's assume he owed you $4,500 in the relatively short time that you've been together with his mother. How much did you sell the car for?
That exact amount.
To whom?
I don't know the name of the person. I took the car to my place of employment, placed a for sale sign in it, and 5 hours later sold the car. I don't know the name of the people. I really didn't expect this.
A man or a woman?
It was a man for his daughter.
Did you get a check or cash?
I received cash.
Do you know that I don't believe a word that's coming out of your mouth?
I'm sorry.
Do you know
I'm sorry.
that I don't really believe a word that's coming out of your mouth? Do you trust him?
I know it was true.
Well, let me tell you something. Most of what he just told me was not true.
I beg to differ, Your Honor.
Oh,
under this day that
you can do all you like, sir, but I understand.
I just swore between God and this court to tell the truth.
Quiet. I understand why Mr. Nelson is annoyed. The truth of the matter is, he made a conditional gift, and it didn't work out the way he had assumed it was work out. He certainly wasn't giving his son a car to give to you, to give you money. And so I can understand why he's annoyed. I understand why you're annoyed, sir.
Thank you.
Okay?
When I get a chance, I'd like to explain.
Go ahead.
First, the car was stolen from her. She has a judgment on it.
A judgment, what do you mean it was stolen from you?
It was, he sold the car to her, not to him.
Who sold the car to her?
Christopher sold the car to her.
Which is Christopher?
Christopher.
You sold the car to this lady?
For $7,500.
I'm speaking.
No, Your Honor.
You did not.
No, Your Honor.
There's the judgment.
I'd like to explain.
Go ahead.
When I received the car, I heard from a friend that I believe Kelly was looking for a car around $5,000, $7,500 or so. And so me and her were talking and everything, but she only had about $2,500 to give me. I knew she was going through some hard time, so we made a verbal agreement that she was to have possession of the car and I was to retain ownership until final payment. After a couple of weeks, I kept getting the same response that...
How much money did she give you?
She gave me $2,500 as a down payment. And then I was still waiting on $5,000 when she went down to her security lockbox at quote-unquote Pachanga. Well, after many weeks of trying to talk to her and give me the same excuse, it wasn't until after I talked to a lawyer and a detective from the Murrieta Police Department about the legal part of it that I was in full right to go and repossess my vehicle.
What'd you do with the $2,500?
She took me to court.
And what happened with it?
I even told her that I would give her the
What
back.
happened with it?
I was unable to attend.
What do you mean you were unable to attend?
I had a class that I was already enrolled in to further my...
Go ahead.
I have a witness in the back.
You didn't know you could appeal.
For what?
I will testify
To what?
to whatever you want to hear.
Well, I
He'll
don't want to testify to whatever
he
I
will
want to hear.
testify to the fact that he did steal the car. He was paid in
Just
full.
a second. Just a second. You have a judgment against him for $7,500?
She has the judgment.
You have a judgment against him, so there's no question.
Here's the bill of sales for the other car.
A court has already ruled on that.
On that one.
On this one.
But the other witness will testify that he did take the car.
No, I got it. He said he repossessed the car, and he couldn't go to the hearing, to the court date, because he had a class.
Okay.
And then he took the car back, and he gave it to his stepfather, who sold it, according to him, for
Here's the bill of sales on
$4,500.
there.
Can I see the bill of sale?
The ones that he can't find.
Your last name is Mater?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I have a bill of sale, sir, with your signature on it, indicating that you sold this car to Joanna for $5,700.
I don't recall it being $5,700.
Well, why don't you take a look at this, sir?
Okay.
I don't remember it being that much either.
Obviously, this is a second-generated bill of sale with the price altered. I'm not a liar. I am a man of integrity. Have fun.
Listen, I don't have to get into all of this. And sit down. I can understand why your father is angry with you. He made a gift to you. He was hoping that you would be able to use that gift and drive safely with that gift. And he didn't do it to line the pockets of anybody else, including taking care of the bills that you allegedly owed to your stepfather. He was trying to help you. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Well, is there any reason why you did that?
What, Your Honor?
Took a wonderful gesture and made it not wonderful anymore.
It wasn't a wonderful gesture, Your Honor.
No, it wasn't?
No, Your Honor.
Well, let me ask you this question, sir. Do you think that your father could have sold that car to somebody else? Put your hand down. Well, you sold it to somebody for $7,500. He sold it to somebody for $5,700. Don't you think your father could have sold it to somebody else for $5,000?
Yes, Your Honor.
That's an answer. Instead, he gave it to you. Write it off. Mr. Nelson, legally, I can't help you because the condition was that you get it back.
Is what it is.
You get it back if you join the Navy. Didn't join the Navy. He's not going to join the Navy. Unfortunate. Sometimes your best intentions are not necessarily.
His words were he signed up for the Navy in January.
I understand that.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you very much.
Good
Your
enough.
case is
Thank you.
dismissed. That's all. You owe him an apology.
That'll never happen.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
It is what it is. Liars, cheats, and thieves. The whole family.
He can't handle the fact that he has no control.
The captain of the fire department is less than honest.
The judge tried to attack my character, which was wrong. I was truthful as much as I could remember.
He's using his position to get personal vendettas.
He's jealous that I am married to his wife and basically have taken his prized possessions.
I just don't like dishonest people.
This guy is definitely less than stable. I just hope for society's sake they take care of this guy.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Lawler versus Fletcher step forward.
Brittany Lawler claims ex-boyfriend Nathan Fletcher broke their apartment lease. Nathan says Brittany kicked him out after he spanked her son.
Miss Lawler, according to your complaint, you and the defendant lived together, signed a one-year lease in an apartment. You moved in, there were three of you. You, the defendant, and you have a child who's 6. You lived together and everything was pretty okay for a while, and then there was an incident involving your son. And the incident involving your son surrounded an eating tantrum that he had. And according to Mr. Fletcher, he threw a tantrum and Mr. Fletcher spanked him. After that, the two of you separated, never got back together again. Mr. Fletcher did pay the rent for a couple of months and then stopped. You want him to pay the last 3 or 4 months' rent because he signed the lease with you. Mr. Fletcher says that he really anticipated that you would be back together again, that you told him to leave, and that he's not going to pay any rent since you asked him to leave. And not only asked him to leave, you told him to leave. I believe in your answer, Mr. Fletcher, you say that her parents gave her an ultimatum. Either you left or they were taking her son.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that what happened?
No.
Well, we'll find out. If they did say that, it probably would have been the right thing to do. Mr. Fletcher.
Yes, ma'am.
There are certain given facts in this case. You signed a joint lease, which obligated you to pay half the rent. You did not pay half the rent for how many months? 3?
I believe so, yes, ma'am.
Is that right?
Yes.
3 months. What for the other 7 months you did? And what was your share of the rent?
$745 a month.
And yours was $745?
Yes, ma'am.
Where are you living now?
I'm still living there. The lease is not up yet, and I'm moving back in with my parents.
Who's paying the rent now?
I am.
From what?
I had to borrow money. I had to take out a personal loan with the bank in order to cover the rent.
Do you work?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Fletcher, tell me when you spanked her son.
It was evening of the 8th, Monday. Had cooked some dinner for him. Huh?
8th of what?
January. He was eating dinner, and all of a sudden, he just started having a little tantrum, and I told him to stop, spitting food all over the carpet, told him to go to his room, wouldn't comply, so I spanked him.
Why don't you just pick him up and put him in his room?
Didn't think about it.
How old is he?
He was 5 at the time.
Where did you spank him?
On his bottom.
What'd you use?
Back of my hand.
How many times did you hit him?
I hit him once.
Once?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right?
I wasn't there. I'd have to take his word or my son's word, so.
Well, you don't have to take his word. What did your son say?
My son said that he had hit him very hard, so he was upset.
Is there any mark on him?
There was a little mark, yes.
You told your parents?
Yes.
And what happened?
When I saw it, I asked him, I said, you know what, you can't stay right now. This is not going to be a good situation. I don't know what's going to happen. I asked him to leave temporarily while he maybe did some parenting classes, maybe anger management or something to help cool things down and maybe fix the situation so that we could stay together.
So what do you want him to do?
I want him to fulfill his obligation and continue to pay the rest of the rent.
But he can't live there, Miss Lawler.
He can't live there because of his own behavior, because of his own actions.
I mean, I don't think if he hit, I'm not advocating Mr. Fletcher using corporal punishment on your child. Let's start with that. However, since you left him with your son in a position of parenting authority, there's a difference between corporal punishment and excessive corporal punishment. If Mr. Fletcher says he hit him once on the behind, and that's what he says, and you have no reason to dispute that, and if you told him to leave as a result of that, and he did not have the ability to stay in the apartment because of that, he shouldn't have to pay the rent.
He signed a lease, and because of his actions...
You move.
And how am I going to move with my son when everything in that apartment was mine?
Listen to me, Miss Lawler. That's a choice that you have. Instead of telling him to leave, say, listen, we have the following choices. We're both on this lease. I can't afford the rent because I'm not working. I'm going to move back with my parents. You can stay in the apartment. Or if I stay in the apartment, we have to do something with the lease. But you told him to leave.
It's temporary.
No.
Yes, it doesn't.
No, you gave him. No.
No.
My dear, temporary.
He left some of his stuff in the apartment, so he knew it was not permanent. I told him, you get some parenting classes, you do some counseling,
that has nothing to do with the lease.
Yes, it does. It has everything to do with
Miss Lawler has nothing to do with the lease, madam. He didn't sign a lease and sign on to take on parenting classes or anger management classes. That wasn't a condition of his lease.
He did sign a lease that he would fulfill his obligation to pay his rent for the entire year. It doesn't matter what happened. He has an obligation to finish paying the rent.
That's why you're here. he did, in fact, pay 2 months' rent when he wasn't living there.
Yes, because he said he would continue to pay the rent because it was his obligation.
And I'm telling you that you told him to leave.
I asked him to leave temporarily until the situation calmed down. Am I supposed to put my son and me in some
When is
situation
your lease? When
where
is
we're
your
not
lease?
comfortable?
Listen to me. When is your lease up?
My lease is up in end of this month.
Well, you should have come to court earlier. I would have told you to go back to your parents earlier and told him to move back into the apartment.
What I have done? He can't pay the rent. We would have both still been on the lease, and we both still would be...
Miss Lawler, that's a what if. And what I'm telling you is the lease is up in 20 days. Instead of waiting 20 days, you should have sued him before. You should have gone in the first month that he said, I'm not paying you any more rent.
I couldn't, because I have to go back every month.
And then I would have said to you, Miss Lawler, go home to your parents now. Mr. Fletcher, you go back to the apartment and continue to pay the rent.
He couldn't have paid the rent by himself. Either way, if he had stayed or I'd stayed, it doesn't matter. We would still be in the same situation.
Miss Lawler, right now, he paid rent for 2 months in an apartment where
That
he was not living.
He
He was
signed
not
a
living.
lease.
You threw him. Don't you get it?
I did not throw him out. I asked him to temporarily leave. That's not...
When did you invite him back?
I wouldn't
Listen to
invite
me.
him back had he
When?
not...
Just answer my question.
If you would let
When
me.
did you invite him? You said, I asked him to leave temporarily. When did you invite him back? On what date?
I told him he could come back when he took some counseling.
He doesn't have to do that,
Well,
madam.
then he doesn't have to continue the relationship with me. That was the circumstances. He knew that when he moved out, that he needed to get some help to continue the relationship so that he can move back in. It was
think he
not
needed
just the
any help.
spanking of my son that started this. He has been unstable and yelling, screaming, accusing me of cheating. Every other week,
There's
he
a
would just...
whole other... Then you should have gone home to your parents earlier, Miss Lawler. Your case is dismissed. That's all.
All right, Judge.
18-year-old Joshua Benson is suing his aunt, Michelle Benson, for stealing money allocated for his college tuition.
Right in the courtroom. All rise. Hello. Now, this is case number 54 on the calendar in the matter of Benson versus Benson. Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor. You may be seated. Ladies, have a seat.
What's your first name, Mr. Benson?
Joshua.
Joshua, this is your aunt and your adoptive mother.
Correct.
She is your mother's sister?
Correct.
According to your complaint, you went to live with her on a full-time basis when you were around 15 years old?
Actually, it was 13.
And you lived with her until you left for college?
No, actually, Your Honor, I'm still in high school. I moved out April of last year when I turned 18 to finish my senior year.
Your claim is that while you were living with Miss Benson, you were working.
Correct.
And you had an agreement with her that you would turn over part of your paycheck to her, that she would save for you for college. She would open up an account, and she would save that money for you. And it is your claim that she did not do that.
Correct.
She used that money for herself, and you want that money. You're getting ready to go to school, and you want that money.
Correct, Your Honor.
Ms. Benson says that you did, in fact, contribute to the household. You worked. You gave her some money. That money was a contribution for things for the household and some of your own expenses. And there was never any agreement to put the money away for you for college. That's your defense. Is that right?
Correct.
All right. Let's turn back the clock a bit. What kind of work were you doing?
My first job was at Tanner's Steakhouse in Andover.
What kind of work were you doing?
I was a dishwasher. I worked Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays.
And when did you have this discussion with Miss Benson about saving for college?
It had always been a thing when I started looking for a job. It was always said that if I got a job, half my paychecks would be put into savings for a college savings
And what'd you
account.
do with the other half?
And the other half was for me to do whatever I wanted with.
Spending money.
Exactly.
And how do you know how much money you gave her over the years?
I have the checks from when I opened up my checking account when I was 16. It was a joint checking account with her and myself. I have the checks that I wrote out to her specifically. In the memo, it said 529 plan or college savings, which are right here.
May I
yes.
see them, please?
When I wrote the checks out to her, she was supposed to take them, deposit them into her checking account, and then she was to take them out of her checking account and put them into the 529 plan, which was supposed to be through T. Rowe Price.
Your Honor.
I didn't ask you anything. Sit down. You're his mother?
Yes.
Didn't ask you anything. You have some checks and some bank statements.
Yeah, all of them have bank statements, and I've stapled the checks that go according to the bank statements.
Okay. So, Joshua, what happened when you turned 18?
I turned 18 January 27th of 05. I lived with her until April of 05. In April of 05, I got another job up by my mom's, and I moved back in with my mom.
I finished out my junior year.
Even though her parental rights have been terminated?
Correct.
You have brothers and sisters, Joshua?
I have one.
How old?
He is 9.
Who does he live with?
He lives with my mom.
Has he always lived with your mother?
Correct.
Is there any reason why you went to live with your aunt when you were 13?
My mom had me when she was very young, and we never really got along. And therefore, I had been in the system for a while. And
You mean in foster care?
Correct. I had been in 3 different foster homes.
Starting at age what? Put your hand down.
I was rather young. I was about 5 or 6. I went into my first foster home, and then I went and moved back in with my mom. And then I went into a different one, which she put me in. The first foster home, my mom did not. It was my other aunt. My mom had just had back surgery and all that.
Okay. Then you went into yet another foster home.
Correct.
How long did you stay there?
I stayed there 2 years, and then I moved back in with my mom again. And then the last time that I went into foster care, that was when the parental rights got terminated and I was adopted.
Okay, but when you went back into foster care, how old were you when you went to live with your aunt initially?
I was going on my 14th birthday.
Yes.
He actually was 12. He came to live with me when he was 12. The last time he went into foster care, he was 10 years old. And I actually have documentation here. Thought I would bring for your benefit.
Just a second.
Okay.
Put it down. I know the way the system works.
Actually, Your Honor, I was 13 because I did celebrate my 13th birthday at my last foster home and had a birthday party.
Okay. At what age were you when you were formally adopted?
I do believe I was 15.
Is that right?
No.
How old was he?
Well, it was 2002, and so he would have been 14.
So he lived with you for a year in foster care.
That's why I was raising my hand, because the last time he went into foster care, he was 10, because his baby brother, half biological baby brother, was born, and that's when Cheryl gave him up for the last time.
Listen to me very carefully. According to you, he came to live with you when he was 12. According to him, he was 13. But he lived with you as a foster child for at least a year before he was adopted. So just listen, put on the listening ears. And while he was living with you when he was 13, until the time he was adopted, you were getting a subsidy for him. How much?
Wow, you know, to be honest with you, I don't remember.
Maybe Joshua remembers. How much was she
If I remember
receiving?
correctly, I was told it was about $1,200 a month. And Your Honor,
Now, just a second. I'm not finished. When your sister's parental rights were terminated and Joshua was adopted, you continued to receive a subsidy for him.
Yes, I did.
Because that's what we call in this country a subsidized adoption. Something very few people know about, but fortunately I know about it. And $1,200 appears to be right because Joshua was probably at that point a hard-to-place child. And so you accepted him into your home. You received $1,200 a month, and that was continued after the adoption became final. So it's not as if Joshua had to provide for his own room, board, etc., because you were receiving money from the government for that purpose. Put your hand down, Joshua. I'm about to come to your aunt.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
What happened to his money?
It was spent on him.
You can't do that. You had absolutely no right to spend the money on him. None.
And later today,
I don't want it to be breaking in my pen.
Then somehow you're going to have to secure the pen even better than it's secured.
It keeps my dog in.
Maybe not.
I mean, I'm not a liar.
Joshua Benson claims his aunt, Michelle Benson, stole his college tuition money. Michelle says the money went toward Joshua's living expenses.
Okay. What happened to his money?
It was spent on him.
You can't do that. That's what the state paid you for.
To not spend the money on him?
The state paid you to take care of him. All of his checks, which were written in different ink, indicate the memo portion of the checks that it was to be put in a 529 plan. That's an educational plan. And you had absolutely no right to spend the money on him. None. That's what you were paid for by the government. You get it?
Yes.
Good.
Your Honor, can I add something to that?
Does it sound like you're losing, Joshua?
No.
I mean, I get it. Unfortunately, the public doesn't get it. The public believes, well, then this was an act of goodwill. Your aunt took you in. She supported you. I'm speaking. Put a roof over your head, food on the table. So if you were working, helping to defray your own costs, what's wrong with that? But the truth is, the citizens of this country were supporting you by giving your aunt money before and after she adopted you. And after you moved out, I assume that money stopped, although I'm not exactly sure because the money very often goes until age 21 unless somebody notifies them that that money's supposed to stop. Do you know if the money stopped?
Actually, not only was she receiving the adoption assistance, she was also receiving Social Security for me in the amount of $563. And I did not find this out until I moved out in April, and I received a check in the mail from the Social Security Administration. And then I called them and was like, well, when did I start getting this? And they told me in 2002, you started receiving this. Well, when I turned 18, they informed me they started coming in my name. I was not aware of the fact that I was ever receiving this.
I got it. What do you want to say?
I want to say that when I was receiving adoption assistance for him was after the fact, and that only went until I was able to claim his as a dependent, and he is a very spendy...
Just a second. The adoption subsidy stopped when, Ms. Benson?
Oh my gosh, the adoption assistance only went for like a year or two. You could check with the state on that. It was not very...
Listen to me. A year or two. And the Social Security?
Started when I applied for Social Security, and it was legal for me to claim him because he was not...
Why did you apply to Social Security?
Because I have MS. I have a disability. I only work part-time.
So you applied for Social Security disability for yourself, and he is a dependent child. Is that right?
Right.
This is some America. This is some system. You owe him $4,660. Pay it. Good luck, Joshua.
Thank you. Parties are excused. You may step out.
Joshua is living in the household of his biological mother, who terminated her parental rights but yet kept a baby. I don't know. You do the math on that one.
I think it's just bitterness. The fact that, you know, I moved back with my mom and now I have nothing to do with her.
I think Michelle likes to make me out to be the worst person in the world. It's not me trying to, you know, say, oh, she's a terrible person and, you know, trying to make an opinion about something. It's not an opinion. It's a fact.
I've tried reconnecting and I always get hurt in the end, and it's just not worth it to me anymore.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Kasparian versus Felton. Step forward, please.
Grace Kasparian is suing her neighbors, Greg and Amanda Felton, for breeding fees, vet bills, and the cost of a DNA test for her German Shepherd, Goody.
Ms. Kasparian, this is a rather interesting lawsuit. You and the defendant are neighbors.
Not immediate neighbors, but down the road a ways.
And you have large parcels of property. How many acres are you on?
A little under 12.
And you?
Just under 6.
You have a beautiful German Shepherd.
Thank you. She's a real good girl. Her name is Goody.
And you have a...
yellow lab.
It is your claim, Ms. Kasparian, that your dog, who you have bred in the past and whose litters you have sold, was in heat, and somehow the Felton's dog got off their property, came onto your property, and mated with Goody?
Yes.
Goody, that's you.
If you call her much more, she'll be over there.
She'll be over there.
No, she won't.
She's got a wonderful face. Anyway, Goody had a litter of puppies, and DNA tests were done.
Yes.
And it was established that you two are almost related. You claim that because of that you had financial losses, and you want the Feltons to be responsible for those losses. So I assume that you gave away the puppies?
Actually, there was 2 break-ins, but the first one is what the lawsuit is all about. I did sell the puppy. I had 2 black puppies, and my contract calls for that I could have, that I would get 3 live puppies. So...
What are you talking about?
I have a contract here that I had her bred to with the Sable up in Washington.
Okay, so you had losses because you could have sold the puppies for more money.
What happened was...
Your dog had a litter of puppies. How many?
2 black puppies. And I had them advertised as high-end European working dog backgrounds.
Okay, and it turned out... Shh, listen to me. We're going to cut to the chase here because I have other cases to do.
Okay.
Turned out that their dog fathered that litter?
Yes.
And you established that, and they concede that because DNA tests were done. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
But your defense is that you don't know whether your dog went on their property or her dog came on your property.
Correct.
We have no record of Koa ever running off the first time.
When was the first time she delivered puppies that were not purebred?
May.
May of 2005. Okay. And there is a 63, because I have a little knowledge of this, there's a 63-day gestation period. Is that right?
I had her bred on about the 17th of February, and it was 67 days from the date of her last breeding.
What proof do you have that their dog, during that time, on or around mid to late February, was on your property and impregnated your dog.
Well, my dog was never out of her pen.
She never ran free?
No.
No, she does. When I run the loop, we have a 3-mile around loop, and when I run the loop, my dogs are always on leashes. Her dog has come out and chased mine and scared mine to where I have to pull them along, so her dog is loose.
Not when she was in season. Never when she was in season was she out running loose. She was always confined, always penned up. But when she's not in season, and of course,
when did you see her dog out loose?
Regularly when I run.
We have a horse and she runs with, you know, she's outside. But never, Judge Judy, when she was being bred, did she ever was out of her pen.
Miss Kasparian, if she was never out of her pen, somehow their dog got into the pen.
Correct.
Is that right? How did their dog get into the pen?
Their dog gets out of a 6-foot chain link pen.
Just listen to me. Pen, chain link, correct? How did their dog, did it go over the pen? Did it burrow under the pen?
I have copies of my fence, and I think what happened was it might have went in, jumped in the back, and went up on the doghouse and got in. This is not the first time he's jumped in people's pens.
Listen to me.
Huh?
There's a lot of speculation, Ms. Kasparian. My problem with your complaint is that one way or another, either your dog got out of the pen or their dog got into the pen. And without proof, Ms. Kasparian, of which way it was, you can't surmise that their dog got in.
But it did.
Ms.
It did get in. My dog was never out, and it was notorious for breaking in pens. It broke out of his to get into mine.
No, he didn't.
He was
Just a second.
ferocious.
We don't know that, Ms. Kasparian. You don't know how their dog got into your pen. Could have jumped over, jumped on a doghouse, jumped over the fence. Your dog could have jumped on the doghouse and jumped over the fence. Could have burrowed under the fence. Your dog could have burrowed under the fence. I'm not saying to you that's how it happened, but I'm saying to you we're in a court.
I know, but I'm telling you as a honest and swore to tell the truth that my dog was never out of the pen, that I kept a real good eye on her.
You can't keep a good eye on your dog all the time. That's ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous, Ms. Kasparian. I know that you say that you're telling me the truth. I believe that you believe that their dog got into your pen, and it very well might have. But you have to have proof, because this is a court.
You mean I had to have seen the dog in the pen?
That would have been helpful. Ms. Kasparian, she looks like a wonderful dog, and you have 2 large pieces of property, and we're in a court, and I cannot make a judgment with a reasonable degree of certainty that I'm comfortable with whose dog got in and whose dog got out. It's very possible that because when a dog is in heat, dogs come from all over. That scent goes for miles and miles and miles. So it's more than probable that your dog somehow found his way into her pen. That's more than likely. That's what you know about dog breeding. Girls don't usually want to run out, but the boys want to certainly get in. But I'm merely taking judicial notice of that, something that I'm able to do. That's not proof. What a wonderful dog she is. She's spectacular personality.
She's
How old is she?
A therapeutic dog. And
how old is she?
She's going to be 6.
She's wonderful. Are you planning on
and
breeding
that's
her
why
again?
Well, depending on how this turns out.
Ms. Kasparian, this is going to turn out just fine because you're taking your dog home with you and you have your health and your dog is wonderful. It is not going to turn out well financially, as I just explained to you. I'm not comfortable making a judgment that their dog, without proof, somehow jumped your fence, got into your pen because of their lack of control of their dog, and fathered this litter.
Well, can they say something about how their dog gets out of their pen and how they can't keep it in? I mean, their dog runs wild. It's got litters all over the neighborhood.
It's a lover. That's not the issue.
I know, but I don't want it to be breaking in my pen.
Then somehow you're going to have to secure the pen even better than it's secured.
It keeps my dog in.
Maybe not.
It does. My dog is... I mean, I'm not a liar.
Ms. Kasparian, I'm not saying you're a liar. You're not watching the dog in your pen all the time. Your dog has been out of the pen, has been out on your 12 acres roaming free, running after the horses.
Not when she's in season.
Oh, Ms. Kasparian, we're not going to go about this. Your case is dismissed. That's all. Thank you.
Bodies are excused. You may step out.
Oh, I can't believe.
Hi, xin chào mọi người. Hôm nay mình sẽ làm món mì quán rau thì mình sẽ cần một số nguyên liệu như sau. Đầu tiên sẽ là cà rốt, thứ hai sẽ là thịt heo, thứ ba sẽ là giá, thứ tư là rau húng tròn đó mọi người. Tiếp theo nữa là đậu phộng, rau, và một cái nguyên liệu không thể thiếu nữa là đó là mì Quảng sắc sợi này. Rồi bây giờ mình sẽ bắt đầu vào quá trình nấu nha mọi người. Để trộn mì á, thì mình những nguyên liệu này thì mình sẽ nấu qua. Thịt thì mình sẽ xào, giá thì mình cũng sẽ trụng sơ qua, và cà rốt của bạn cũng sẽ trụng sơ qua cho nó mềm một chút. Đó. Thì cà rốt này mình sẽ gọt vỏ và bào sợi nha mọi người. Thịt thì mọi người nên ướp sơ một ít gia vị thôi. Mình nghĩ là nên ướp cái vị nó đậm đậm một xíu, để khi mà mình trộn á, mình ăn chung với lại mì á, nó sẽ vừa nha. Cái đây thì cà rốt mình sẽ bào sợi nha mọi người, sử dụng cái bào này. Bây giờ thì mình sẽ đi xào thịt trước nha mọi người. Đó. Này mình cũng có bỏ một ít gia vị vào trong này rồi. Giờ tới thì mình sẽ cho hành vào cây nha. Phi cũng sẽ rất là nhanh, cho nên mình cần phải chuẩn bị đồ trước này để đổ vào ra nha mọi người. Đó. Mình thấy cái hành mình đã sắp nhỏ giòn thì mình sẽ bớt ra. Ở đây mình sẽ chừa lại một ít dầu để mình xào thịt nha. Thì tùy mình là muốn có nước thịt không mọi người, nước và thịt để mình trộn á, tùy mình thôi, mình muốn có thì mình sẽ cho một
phi nước rồi. Cảm thấy cần mình xào á. Thì khi chín thì mình sẽ vớt ra này nè. Bây giờ mình sẽ cho thịt rán luôn. Hi. Mình đã hoàn thành xong món mì Quảng trộn. Đây, thành quả của mình rất là thơm. Đó, món này sẽ rất là hữu ích để cho mình thay thế món cơm vào buổi tối hoặc buổi trưa nào đó mình không muốn ăn cơm thì mình có thể làm món này nha mọi người. Cảm ơn mọi người đã coi video của mình nhé. Bye bye.